One. Hello and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by Clinton Young. Good afternoon, or good morning, I should say. Where are you guys?
Thanks, Pete. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Listen, thank you for coming on. So, Clinton, tell us, who are you, what are you doing, where are you from?
So my name's Clinton Young, as Pete mentioned, and I live in San Diego, California in the USA. And I'm an international keynote speaker and world-class coach for aspiring speakers. Pete, I've also been told I'm an awesome podcast guest. I hope I can live up to that for you today, my friend.
Hey, listen, you're doing great, friend. You've got the voice for it too, man. You know, you're out there already. So that's awesome.
Nice.
So so you're out there. You're coaching. You're all about the speaking and the leading. So tell us. I mean, how did that all come about?
Well, I always have been somebody that this is going to sound selfish, but I'm going to start really base level. I've always done what makes me feel good. I've always, before I knew about personal development, before I even really knew that much about academic development, and before I knew about my strengths or my weaknesses, I'd always naturally gravitated towards things that made me feel good. Now, as I've discovered more and more about the world of personal growth and development, which I feel is totally distinct and different than academic development, right? Where we're discovering more about ourselves, what are our values, what really motivates us, what are our strengths and weaknesses. As I got entered into that world, I started to notice that when I was speaking, it gave me life. It gave me energy, right? I felt like I was sort of in the flow of life, if you will, where time flew by. And it was just something that there was a sort of grace and ease to it. Not that I was great at it in the beginning. Don't get me wrong. I've got a pretty funny story of how I started speaking. It was not pretty at all. But for some reason, I kept gravitating towards that opportunity of raising my hand, being the leader, even though it was uncomfortable. And again, this was all subconscious. I didn't even really know that much about speaking at all. I just knew that it felt good when I was in front of a microphone or talking with people. So that's literally, if you want to know base level, that's how it started. But ultimately, to make a long story short, I had a mentor, Pete, that he saw something in me when I didn't even really see it in myself, that there was more than just that it felt good, that I actually had a gift. And I had something that, although very unpolished at the time, I had an opportunity to really turn that into a diamond, if you will, with enough work, with enough mentorship and guidance and repetition and practice. I've really been able to hone myself into what I call a world-class speaker. And that is a very specific meaning to me, but that's kind of the high level. How did I get there? Of course, there's a lot of tactical and practical that happened, but that's kind of how it happened. My mentor, literally, I'll tell you a quick story, Pete. One of my mentors, he literally, every day, picture this, where every week, once a week, maybe twice a week, we would have a presentation in the office. So we'd have 30, 40 guests in the office, and I would be in the seats, right? Being a good audience member, high-fiving, shaking hands, kissing babies, right? And laughing at his jokes, and he would do the presentation. Well, one day, we walk up to the conference room. Picture this. It's like full-on glass walls, floor to ceiling, full-on glass door. So as soon as we walk up, myself and his name is Justin, my mentor, we walk up, and as soon as we walk up to the door, every single head, about 35 people in that room, turn and look over at me and Justin. Right at that moment, Justin turns to me, he flips me the clicker, and he's like, "You're on today, buddy." He opens the door and he walks in, and I'm just left standing there like, what just happened? So that was the beginning of my speaking career. He saw something in me when I didn't even see it in myself. And man, I was shaking in my boots, shaking, quaking, the perspiration coming down my face, tight knot in my stomach. But eventually I would settle down, because it started out as a train wreck. But eventually I'd settle down, and I started to recall some of the things that Justin had shared with me over the years. And I noticed that there was this sort of flame that got lit in me, this fire. I was like, wow, I am even though I was scared crapless, I was lit up, and I was like, wow, this is scary fun. This is scary fun, ready to jump out of a plane, scary fun. And, about 6 months later, I find myself in another room, much larger room, and I'm leading a presentation to 100 people. In only 6 months, I grew tremendously. And that was the day when I was hooked, Pete, because I remember looking out in the audience that second time that I'm second instance I'm sharing. And I was so connected with that audience. You could literally cut the emotion and the connection in the room with a knife. So much so that I looked out at the audience at one point and I said, "Can you guys feel that?" And they looked at me and they're like, "Yeah, keep going, keep going." And man, it was that moment, Pete, that I was absolutely hooked, and speaking became my healthy obsession.
Wow, I love that. I mean, there's so many things there, but in terms of pain, pleasure driven, I mean, that's given us a real mix of, you off the deep end, but actually then you kind of go, yeah, I can swim. We're swimming. We're good. We're good. So
Yeah.
what is that? I mean, you're typical. I mean, are you generally pain driven, pleasure driven? Where do you go?
So that's a great question. I would say that I am probably pleasure driven if I had to choose. However, I find that people actually take the most action when they actually experience pain, when they're moving away from pain versus moving towards pleasure.
Mm.
And in a lot of cases, and I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit, but in a lot of jobs and businesses that I've had in the past, because I've been high level executive in corporate as well as an entrepreneur, more of a solopreneur business owner. And I found that when I've had failure or when I've been in a role that really didn't align with my unique gifts and talents, I was more motivated to move away from that. And that's actually how I became an entrepreneur in the first place than I really ever have been, even though I say I'm pleasure driven. As I'm sitting here speaking it out, like I find that me and other people are actually more driven by moving away from pain than moving towards pleasure. Maybe a little bit of both.
I think yeah, it's I think we all like to think we're going to, we're pleasure driven, and yeah, no, we're
Yeah.
cool, we're calm, we're good, and it's like, yeah, the house is on fire, and it's like, yeah, cool,
Yeah.
you find your flow, but tell us, I mean, before we get really into it, I mean,
Yeah.
what does fire in the belly mean to you?
Fire in the belly really to me means that moment when you become conscious. And I know that's kind of a goofy word for some people, but when I'm asked to explain what is consciousness, I tend to actually explain what unconsciousness is first, and it tends to help. So my keynote speech is called Reigniting the Human Spirit. And, there's a whole story around that as well that perhaps we'll get into today for your listeners. But ultimately what that means is there's sort of this unconsciousness that I find that I was walking around with. And I find that a lot of people on planet Earth are walking around unconscious, right? And they're unconscious to really that anything's possible. Like we grow up, I don't know, when I grew up, my parents used to say, or my mom always used to say, you can do anything. And when I was a little kid, I'm like, it just kind of falls on deaf ears. You're like, want. Yeah, you can do anything. Okay. But what I found is I've really immersed myself in sort of a spiritual awakening that I've had, and then more of a personal development growth process, really a lifestyle of person. Actually, right. Like we actually can do anything when we set our minds to it, when we're inspired enough, when we're clear enough about what we want, we can do anything. But I've found that a lot of people, even if they believe anything's possible, a lot of times they'll experience a failure or a challenge. And then they're stuck. They feel like, and I've been there, ask me how I know, right? I got stuck in this place where I knew anything was possible. I even thought anything was possible for me, but I was stuck. I felt confused. Like, what do I actually want? Like, I didn't even know what I wanted. And I find that a lot of people want to make a difference. They want to make more money. They want to be more connected. They want to do more in their life, but they just don't even know what the heck they want. There's so much stimuli, if you will, especially in today's day and age, from everywhere, that some people get stuck. So I find that people are in one of three places. They're either there, and these are the people that are already sort of awake to what's possible. There's a fourth category of people that are just totally unconscious and believe that nothing's possible, and they're kind of toxic and you might want to run the other way. But the people that feel that anything's possible, a lot of them are confused and they don't know what they want. Some people know what they want, but they don't know how to actually get it. Right? They don't know how to get it. And that's why they need to, follow people like yourself, right? Follow podcasts like this that share unique insights that might help people, or they might want to get a coach or a mentor to really discover, all right, I know what I want, but I just don't know how to get there. How do I actually do it? And then the third category is the people I really speak to the most in my keynote speech, Reigniting Your Human Spirit. And those are the people that they believe that anything's possible. They know what they want. They even know how to get it, but they don't believe it's possible for themselves. It's possible for other people, but for whatever reason, it's not possible for me, right? And those are the people that have that sort of limiting belief. And a lot of times, again, they could be somebody that maybe had a failure or a traumatic event, or a loss in a relationship or a business, or whatever it might be, that it might have shaken their confidence. And that's definitely what happened to me. I've been in all of those stages, including the oblivious person walking around, snowblind, sleepwalking. And I have found that the more awake and conscious we become, the more interested we become in what lights us up. What inspires us? What are our gifts and talents? What are my values? What is my vision? What's the difference and impact I want to make in the world? What's my purpose? The more we get interested in these questions, I find it brings more life to our lives. It brings more fire to our bellies, if you will. It actually excites us to wake up in the morning and be like, I'm excited about today. And I know for some, I may be painting a little bit of a utopian world, but there is an opportunity for us to live day in and day out with a fire in our belly, if you will, at least from my definition, which may or may not be similar to your definition. But that's, to answer your question in a little bit more detailed way, that's what I'd say fire in the belly means to me.
And there's so much there. And I'm curious because typically, I suppose, from what I'd be aware of, you talk about consciousness being positive, as in you're more aware, you're more open, if I've picked that up correctly. So in some fields of personal development, they'll say like your subconscious is the powerhouse, if you like, and the consciousness is the ego, that's the bit in the way. So when you're thinking slightly different, or the terminology as such, I think is probably more the right way.
Yeah, let's speak to that real quick. I like that you just brought that up. You're right. And, a lot of times when we think about our conscious brain, we can think of ego, which in some context might seem negative, like your ego is the thing that stops you from really being your unique natural self. But we can also think about consciousness in a way, and there's elements of that I believe, and I definitely believe some of the things you said about subconscious. So let's unpack that a little bit more. And just so everybody knows, I'm not the foremost expert in psychology, but I do have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I have a master's degree in organizational psychology, and I've been geeking out on neuroscience and the human condition for like the last 15 years, which I would imagine you probably geek out on that stuff in some respects as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of winging it though.
Yeah. Well, I am too in some respects. There are definitely people that know a lot more. I'm just giving a little bit of credibility there because I tend to weave in psychology to most things that I talk about. And emotion, because that's what I studied in grad school. And I just feel like that's part of uniquely who I am. But coming back to your question, I'm trying to remember what the actual question was. Oh yes. So the conscious versus unconscious, and is one good, is one bad? I know you didn't ask exactly that, but I'm going to speak to that. So I believe when we become conscious, and what I mean by that is aware, that we actually have an opportunity to co-create our lives with whatever source we believe in. We might believe in God, we might believe in spirit, we might believe in Allah, we might believe, whatever we believe in, you might believe in there's nothing. It's just, it is what it is. Whatever that is, there's something that's guiding us. And that's my belief. I believe that there's something that's guiding us that's bigger than us. And I'm not getting religious at all. In fact, I would actually classify myself as non-religious. Not to turn off anyone here, you might be super religious or you might be more spiritual. I would classify myself as being more spiritual, meaning that I believe there's something bigger than me that I cannot freaking explain that is out there to serve and support me and the rest of humanity. And it's not any better than anyone else, what everyone else believes in. But bottom line is, I feel that when we discover and become aware that, wow, we actually have the ability to co-create and have some level of influence on our lives, I feel like that's the world of personal growth and development. There are so many concepts we could dive into right now. I won't go into too many, but you mentioned Mark Victor Hansen, somebody that you've interviewed before, which is an amazing interview. Congratulations. And people that run in his circle, they talk about this sort of principle of the world, right? It's kind of like a principle of law of gravity. It's, they call it the law of attraction. And think of that what you will. Google it if you don't know what we're talking about. But, when you have these positive, inspiring thoughts and you have clarity about what you want, there's sort of this magical experience that happens in the world. And I'm not talking about like abracadabra magic. I'm talking about seemingly miraculous happenings that occur for us coincidentally. It seems like coincidence, but it's not. There's opportunities to align with a sort of higher power, if you will. And when we truly get that consciously, that's what I mean by consciousness, that there's consciousness around, perhaps even consciousness around how unconscious we are in certain areas of our life, right? When we bring awareness to a place that we had no awareness of before, that's what I mean by consciousness. It's sort of this newfound awareness of what's possible for ourselves, what's possible for the world, what's possible for us in any particular given situation. So that's what I mean by consciousness, more so than the conscious brain being the ego, etc. And when we become, this is where it really gets powerful, Pete. So your listeners might want to really listen in hard here. When we become conscious of what's in our unconscious, that's when we really begin to understand how we can co-create our lives. Because you're right, our unconscious brain actually makes up about 95% of our bodily functions, our daily choices, our thought processes, all the things that are going on in our brain and in our daily life. About 95% of that is happening unconsciously. If you want to find a cool study, there's a gentleman, I think his name is Professor Dr. Gerald Zaltman. I know his last name is Zaltman, out of Harvard University in Massachusetts in the US. And he has studied the unconscious brain for years. And he's done actual studies that prove 95% of our day-to-day functions are happening without us even being aware of it. When I learned that, it like blew my mind, Pete. That means we're like 5% alive, like 5% alive. Right? So the more that we can learn what is actually in our unconscious, like our limiting beliefs, which I talk a lot about in my keynote speech, how do we discover more and more of our limiting beliefs? How do we discover what we actually want? How do we get clear about what we want? And then how do we get clear about why the heck, and I wonder if any of your listeners out there have had this vision, this clear vision of what they want, but they keep running into this pattern of like, damn it, there it is again. I didn't get what I wanted. Damn it, there it is again. Like something else happened that blocked me or stopped me. That's all in our programming. That's all, not trying to get too psychological with you here, but that's all our limiting beliefs that are stopping us from reaching that potential. I was doing a podcast the other day and I said this thing. I said that it would be an absolute cruel joke, Pete, if we had a vision and we had the ability to have a vision of something that was possible. It'd be a cruel joke for that to not actually be possible for us to only be able to see it, but in reality, we're not able to actually achieve it. That would be the cruelest joke on the planet. So one thing your listeners and you and I can take sort of appreciation for, and we can feel good about, is when we have a vision of something that we see as possible, it actually means that it's possible not only for the world, but for you to achieve. It's actually possible for you and I to achieve whatever we can actually see in our vision. And whenever something pops up that says it's not, that's a limiting belief. So the more we dig into that and become conscious of what is going on in our unconscious brain, it just gives us more awareness. It gives us more freedom. Awareness creates freedom. And we become more and more aware of these limiting beliefs. And as we do that, they begin to dissolve. And now we can consciously create more empowering beliefs that support our vision. And there's so many things that, oh my goodness, we could talk about that support us in achieving that. But I'm going to stop talking now for a moment and weigh in with where you're at with what I just said.
No, I mean, listen, it makes so much sense. I'm curious there. I mean, you talk about co-creation. Why co?
Yeah.
Where does the co bit come from?
Co-creation, like some people believe that their higher power has created their whole destiny, and they have they have no say in how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean is we co-create it with our creator, whoever that is.
Okay.
And what I mean by it, to put it quite simply, we have control over how our life turns out. It doesn't mean we can control every single thing that happens. It means that we can shape and direct and guide ourselves to reach the goals that we want in our lives when we understand how the brain works, how our soul works, how universal powers and principles work, and just how goal setting works for that matter, and how to take action, how to keep a positive mindset. That's what I mean. We can co-create it. In other words, be involved.
Just before we get the spades out and we really go down the rabbit hole, which is cool. I'm enjoying it. Unpack ego for us, because I know, listen, there's different polarities, there's different options here, but just I'm conscious to know your sort of take on ego.
So I personally don't really study ego a lot. I don't really know that I would give a great scientific example of what ego is and what it can do for you in your life. I just know that there's some level of my brain and of my mindset that sort of wants to protect me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how I'll speak about it. In history, we used to have to run from saber-toothed tigers, I believe they're called, saber-toothed tigers. We used to have to run from these things or things like that, right? And so our biology, our physiology has continued to progress over the years and over the centuries. And that physiology, that biology is still in our brains. It's built into our brains to perceive danger. Okay. But the problem is the way my understanding of how our ego works, my understanding is that when things happen in our lives, Pete, that are potentially scary, like public speaking, for example, right? I do for a living what most people's number one fear is in their lives. There have been studies that show that people's number one fear on the planet is speaking above and beyond death. That is crazy, but it's true. And it doesn't mean, by the way, that I'm saying I'm better than anyone. It doesn't mean that I don't get scared. I get scared every time I speak. I've just learned to transmute that energy into excitement, into passion, into a care for the audience. I feel the same exact physiological response. And if you're wondering what the heck physiological response is Clinton talking about, it's that tingly feeling you might feel when you have to maybe raise your hand or speak in class or speak up at work or in your business when you're leading your team. You get this kind of tingly, uneasy feeling, right? And just not to take a little sidebar on this for anyone out there that is an aspiring speaker, I'd like to say that, again, that feeling never goes away. We just get better at transmuting it. And what I mean by transmuting it, I mean that if you are walking down a path and you come across a bear, you're going to have this physiological feeling in our brain, in our body, I should say, right? It's the fight or flight response. You're going to call it fear and you're going to call it danger, right? You're going to call it danger. Let's say you're an adrenaline junkie and you're in a plane and you're getting ready to jump out of the plane. Your physiology is going to respond the same exact way as it responded when you're on the path with the bear, but you're not going to call it danger. There's still some danger involved, but you're not going to call it danger. You're going to call it excitement. It's the same dang feeling. You just have a different meaning assigned to it. That's all. So when you're speaking, One of the tips I give to people when I feel that feeling is to transmute it into passion and excitement and enthusiasm and energy for the people in the audience and care for the people, is I say these words to myself. I say, I'm about to do something of significance. And that allows me to shift my concern from my brain and how I'm going to look and, oh no, am I going to say the right thing? It allows me to shift my concern from me to the person sitting in the front row or the person sitting in the back row. And it just allows me to sort of triggers the whole process. And I have a whole process that I work with my coaching clients that want to become aspiring speakers or that are aspiring speakers, to take your energy from your head to your heart. Okay. I just wanted to add that in there. But to get back to, we talked about ego, and we talked about when things happen in our lives, even things that we want really bad. So let's take it back to, think of a time in your life that you really, really, really wanted something, like really bad. And you could even see it. It's like right there. You can see it. It's not going to be easy to get, but you know it's possible. And then you don't take action. And all of a sudden, fear and doubt creep in. And now you really don't take action. And now your brain literally goes to work to literally enroll you or sell you on the fact that that was a bad idea anyways. You did the right choice by not taking action. Tell me that doesn't happen to people out there. I know it does. And my man Morpheus from one of my favorite movies, The Matrix, he says that we're all prisoners of our own mind. We're all prisoners of our own mind. What he's talking about our limiting beliefs, right? He's talking about our limiting beliefs, those things that stop us from taking action. And there's this great resource, anyone out there that's taking notes, you might want to Google Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. She has an amazing talk. Pete's nodding his head. It looks like he's heard of this before. And it basically states what I just said. If you have an inspired thought, an inspired action, and you don't take action within 5 seconds, your brain is going to go to work to annihilate that thing. It's going to annihilate it because it's trying to protect you. Think about the physiology we talked about earlier, right? From the saber-toothed tiger. We're programmed to run from danger. Unfortunately, our ego, right, parts of our conscious brain are designed to protect us. And I might not have this 1,000% correct on the brain, Google search it, whatever, but just get the basic understanding of what I'm saying here. That's the most important thing, right? Our brain is designed to protect us from danger. The problem is, Pete, our brain, especially our conscious brain, it sometimes does not classify things appropriately. Sometimes it classifies us wanting to do something, and it could be potentially a little bit scary. It's going to stretch us into that zone of uncomfortability, and it immediately calls it danger. It assigns it the meaning danger instead of assigning it the meaning excitement, self-expansion. Wow, what would be possible if I became world-class as a speaker and can now impact thousands of people all around the world? Instead of running from that, if I called it danger, thinking I'm a saber-toothed tiger's chasing me. So I know I just gave you a massive answer to what's my idea of ego, but unfortunately that part of our brain that I believe is part of the ego, that is our conscious brain, it's designed to protect us, but unfortunately, the history of how it was designed to protect us is not useful in today's day and age in some capacities. Now, if somebody's chasing you with a gun or you do see a bear, well, that is danger, right? And you do want to act appropriately. But unfortunately, it misclassifies certain experiences in our lives as danger versus opportunity to expand. Does that make sense, Pete? Did I bring it home there for us at the end?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
Okay.
I was curious as well. Then I suppose in terms of limiting beliefs, I mean, what are sort of common limiting beliefs, and what are the origins of some of them then?
I love that you just asked me that. Okay, so one of my limiting beliefs, and try this on for yourself, everyone out there that's listening. One of mine was, I'm so stupid. This is so stupid, right? So there's many, many different limiting beliefs. A lot of them I'm going to talk to you about how they're born, how they're originated, and then I'll back into some of the different common ones that I've seen from around the world, across cultures as well. Across cultures, I speak all around the world, and I find it's very similar across cultures. And then I'm even going to share with you the top 3 things that we can do to up level our limiting beliefs, if that's cool with you. Okay.
Sure.
But let's start off with when we're little kids. Again, I'm going to get a little brainy on you for a second, but I'm going to keep it high level. It's not going to be super psychological, but it's going to be very meaningful for you. This could literally rock your world. So pay attention here, guys and gals. So when we're little kids, right, we have what I like to call that little kid confidence, right? Little kid confidence. It's like the picture, the meme where you see that little kid and he's got like goggles on, like he's in an airplane and he's got airplane wings and he's just like, bah, he's like flying around. In fact, I saw a little kid do this at a restaurant a few years ago. He's literally like owning that restaurant, like bah, bah, like flying around, being an airplane. He is the epitome of an airplane. No concern whatsoever about how he looks. Anything is possible. Childlike confidence. That's what I'm talking about. Little kid confidence is that sort of that faith that anything is possible. And what I mean by faith, again, I'm not talking religious faith, although that would probably help you as well. I'm not even talking necessarily spiritual faith. That'll help you too. What I'm talking about is this sort of knowingness. It's a faith is a knowingness that anything is possible. And it's not only a knowingness, it's a belief that it's possible for you as well. And it's my belief, Pete, that the magic happens at the intersection between that knowingness, that faith that anything's possible. So picture yourself on the edge of the cliff. Anything's possible, right? The magic happens between the edge of that cliff and the bottom of that cliff. It's the intersection between knowing that anything's possible and not knowing how you're going to get it. I'm going to say that again. The magic intersection, the magic happens at the intersection between the knowingness and faith that anything is possible. And in fact, what you want is possible and you believe it's possible, but then the not knowingness, total unknowingness of how the heck you're actually going to achieve it, but taking that step anyways, that's where the magic happens, right in between. So the problem is, okay, getting back to how do limiting beliefs happen and how do they start and what are maybe some examples of some? Well, think about it. You're a little kid, anywhere between 3 and 7, 8 years old, and other things can happen later in your life as well. But a lot of our belief system is formed by the time we're 8 years old. A lot of it is formed, like at a very young age. So picture this, something happens in our lives and it could be something traumatic. It really could. Or it could be something totally benign. In other words, not that consequential, right? Totally normal happenstance. Something happens, but what happens in our brain, this is how we learn to make sense of the world, is we make everything mean something. And there's a reason why. Because at any given moment, now I'm going to go into a little neurolinguistic programming here. I know I'm getting a little out there with but this is fact. This is real stuff. We are bombarded by billions and billions of bits of information at any one instant in our life. Right now, we're getting bombarded by billions and billions of bits of information, but our brains are only able, our conscious brains, I should say, are only able to actually take in and receive a much smaller amount of that. I believe it's in the millions, or it's way smaller than billions, okay? Way smaller than, we can only process a certain amount. So our brains at a very young age learn to become, as a survival mechanism, so we don't go bananas, so we don't go crazy, we become deletion, distortion, and there's one other D word I can't quite remember, but there's 3 Ds. Deletion and distortion machines. We delete out information. We distort information so that it makes sense in our lives, and we bring it down. It's almost like a filter. We bring it down into what our brains can actually process at any given moment. And unfortunately, that's partly, and this is the really remedial way of explaining mental disorder, but when somebody is And there's a lot more involved here, right? I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a practicing entrepreneurial psychologist, if you will, as a hobby. But ultimately, that filter in somebody that's brain is maybe misfunctioning or malfunctioning, that filter gets wider. And that's why they'll say like everything and anything that comes into their brain, because it's just wider, right? If somebody's ever on drugs, unfortunately, that's what happens as well. It takes that filter and makes it wider. So anyways, coming back to the filter, this filter, guess what makes up the filter? Our beliefs make up this filter. It decides what pieces of that billions of bits of information actually get let through our sort of lens, which our beliefs are our lens, like glasses, through which we see the entire world. Our limiting beliefs are the lens through which we see ourselves, through which we see what's possible for ourselves, through which we see what's possible in the world, right? And when we have limiting beliefs, we see the world very differently. We could literally be standing right next to somebody, and the same exact occurrence happens in front of us. Let's say we're 35 years old, whatever age you are, right in front of somebody, right in front of the same thing that happens. And one of you says, wow, what a tragedy. The other one says, wow, what an opportunity. The same exact thing happened, Pete. All it is we each have different lenses or different filters, to use the other analogy, that lets in different bits of information that tells us and assigns meaning to what happens. So let's get back to the meaning thing with a little kid confidence. Hopefully that helped people understand partially how this all works. But how do they get formed in the first place? Well, something happens, right? Benign happenstance or something traumatic, and we make it mean something. We assign a meaning to it, but it's not the correct meaning. It's the wrong meaning. I raised my hand in class one time as a little kid in 3rd grade. Teacher says whatever they say, I don't even remember what she said exactly. I assigned a meaning. I'm so stupid. This is so stupid. I shouldn't even raise my hand. I'm stupid. Why would I want to raise my hand? That's not what she meant. Nobody's that cold. She didn't mean you're stupid, but that's what I assigned as a meaning in my brain. Now that's a very specific example. There are so many of these that we all have, right? And if you're challenged by taking in this information, just try it on, take a deep breath and try it on like a warm blanket that this is possible. Try it on that this is what's running your life. Right? This is what's giving you the results that you have right now, is whatever belief system you have, and whatever, most importantly, the limiting beliefs that you can't even see, you don't even know that you don't know. You certainly don't know that you have them, right? So you have these beliefs, they get filed away sort of in a filing cabinet, if you will, as a little kid in your brain. If you picture and imagine your brain as a filing cabinet, one thing happens and you file it away with a meaning. The reason why we do that is because the next time something happens that's similar to that, our brain, for efficiency purposes, needs to be able to access that file so that we can quickly and easily make choices and do it without even thinking about it. How many times, Pete, have you driven to, let's say, an office when you had a job, you go to your office every day, or whatever example you want to give, to the grocery store, and you're driving there, everyone out there listening, try this out. You're just picture and imagine you're driving. Has this ever happened in your life? And you get to your destination and you're like, wow, how the heck did I get here? I was totally not even conscious of how I drove here. How do we do that? That's because we have these files, right, of how the world works filed away in our subconscious brain so that we can operate more efficiently and not have to access our brain, our conscious brain. And because it gets tired, it tires our brain out. It's being more and more efficient. How limiting beliefs are formed is how I just shared. It's the same way all beliefs are formed. And again, that's a very rudimentary example, dumbed down for me to be able to explain it, not for you to be able to understand it, but for me to be able to explain it in a way that's meaningful. And then we go through the rest of our lives, Pete, collecting evidence to prove that that construct of the world is true, that that belief is true. Because guess what? That makes us feel safe. when we can find other evidence and we start to see other bits of information that match that, now we're like, our brain's like, okay, we feel safe. We feel secure. We're good. And that's how we get stuck in this sort of groove, if you will, almost like a groove on a record player, going around and around and around. And that's how we have these experiences of life where we have a vision that something's possible, and then the same dang pattern keeps showing up in our lives that keeps blocking us, that keeps stopping us. That's because we have limiting beliefs that we've not been able to uncover yet. And I'd be happy to share some ways to start to uncover them. But that ultimately is how we start to believe that the world's not safe. Here's another example. I'm not safe. I'm not good enough. That's one of the most common ones on the entire planet. I'm not good enough. It's not fair. That's another one. These were all meanings that were made in a time in your life when your brain had no business assigning meaning because it wasn't mature enough to really assign the right meaning, basically, right? That's why, you'll get psychologists putting you on the couch and bringing you back to your past. There are other ways to do that without laying down on a couch. Obviously, if you have any serious mental issues, I recommend that you go and see a psychologist or psychiatrist. But, I'm talking to the most of the population out there that's really just wants to live a better life. They want to have that fire in their belly, and they even have it, but for some reason they keep getting stopped and they don't know what's stopping them. Well, this is just the beginning of that conversation, Pete.
Before you go into it, and thank you for sharing so much. I mean, it's amazing, as you say, those generalizations that, all men are this, or, every bumblebee does that, or whatever it is. But how do you actually, because the expression, the eye can't see itself. And then it's probably similar with limiting beliefs. It's kind of going, I don't have a limiting belief. I'm okay. What's wrong with everyone else? How do you actually, how do you go about sort of checking or sense checking your own limitations?
Great question. So first thing out there for anyone that maybe is still thinking like, I don't think I have a limiting belief. Let me ask you this. Do you have everything that let me ask it this way. Are you being the kind of person that you vision yourself to become, your highest and best self? Right now, are you being that person? If the answer is yes, awesome. Good for you. Keep answering the rest of these questions. If you're not yes to every single one of these, I can guarantee you have limiting beliefs. And in fact, even the most enlightened people on the planet still have limiting beliefs that they're uncovering on a daily basis. So the second question is, are you doing all the things you want to do in your life right now? If the answer is no, well, you probably have limiting beliefs that are stopping you. Why aren't you? Everything's possible, right? Do you have all the things you want to have in your life right now? Are you making the kind of impact you want to make in your life right now at the level you want to make it? If you're not, you probably have limiting beliefs, right? So how do we start to discover what they are? Just trust me, try that on that you do, okay? I do, and I teach this stuff, and I still have limiting beliefs that I'm uncovering, right? It's all about becoming a student of yourself, and that's where the most fulfillment I've found comes, is really becoming a student of myself and a student of the human condition, right? What stops me from reaching my full potential? That's why I'm so passionate about helping other people reach theirs and enabling the courage and confidence to live your dream life now, and enabling aspiring speakers courage and confidence to express their unique message, because I know it's in there, right? And all that's stopping you are these limiting beliefs, right? There's obviously, you got to do some work, right? You got to do work. You got to put in effort. You can't just sit there and think and meditate on a rock and all of a sudden everything happens perfectly. Law of attraction. No, that's not how the law of attraction works. In fact, I'd love to share with you my journey of experiencing that later on if we have time. Okay, so we were talking about limiting beliefs and how do we uncover them? How do we up-level our beliefs? Well, the first thing, write this down. Write down from top to bottom, write down LNM. LNM. And I'm going to give you 3 tips. First thing is, start to listen to your language. Yes. Listen to the words coming out of your mouth, right? Especially when you're frustrated, when you're upset, when you're annoyed, when you're pissed off. Whatever words come out of your mouth after you stub your toe, your limiting belief is probably encapsulated somewhere inside of those words that you just said. One of your limiting beliefs, and that's just one, right? I'm so stupid. This is so stupid. I'm not stupid. I got like a 3.96 out of 4.0 in grad school. Like I'm not freaking stupid. But for some reason, my brain keeps telling me I am, right? So listen to the words coming out of your mouth. And if you can't hear the words coming out of your mouth, if it's not resonating with you, then start to listen to the words of the people that you hang out with. Right now, you might not want to call them out and be like, hey, Pete, I think that might be a limiting belief. That's not going to work too well. Right? Trust me how I know. No, I'm just kidding. I never asked anybody that. But don't you just try it on. Just be like, wow, I noticed this person I hang out with all the time. They always say this. I just keep hearing them say this pattern. They keep saying the same thing. Do I say that? Chances are you probably do. Or you probably say something very similar, because we tend to hang out with, remember the saber-toothed tiger, we tend to hang out with people we know, like, and trust, that we feel safe with. Everything a lot of times in our brain comes down to safety. We want to feel safe, right? And expanding and stretching ourselves sometimes doesn't feel safe, but it's a false read. It's not danger. It's just excitement. Okay? So start to listen to the words of the people that you're hanging out with. And that leads me to number 2, N. Up-level your network. N stands for network. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, if you want to be a triathlete, Pete, who do you think you should hang out with? Tell me. Who do you think you should hang out with if you want to be a triathlete?
The best athletes you can think of.
Absolutely. And I like that you didn't actually even say triathlete. You could hang out with triathletes, but at the bare minimum, hang out with people that are the best athletes you can think of that are in your circle. Seek out other people that are not in your circle, and seek out those people that are 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 steps ahead of you on the same path, on the same journey. I have a free speaker group in Facebook called the Speaker Posse. In fact, I'd love for you to join it, Pete, if you think it would serve you. It's a collective of badass speakers from all around the world that are either aspiring speakers or they're already speaking on stages all around the world. And I have this picture on it, and it's this picture of these just amazing, ferocious looking, but peaceful lions. It's a lion pride. And the caption reads, I didn't put the caption on there, I just left the picture. But the caption on the original picture says, surround yourself with those on the same mission as you. And it's a fierce picture, man. So check out Speaker Posse. But surround yourself with other people on the same mission as you. If you want to be a speaker, hang out with speakers. If you want to be a podcaster, hang out with Pete. If you want to up-level your beliefs, hang out with Pete again, because he has awesome guests on his podcast. Right? If you want to be a triathlete, find triathletes in your area. If you want to grow in your company, let's say you're an employee right now, we'll start to hang out with some of the leaders in the company, start to hang out with leaders in other companies, start to join groups with people that are making more money than you, if that's important to you. They have more influence than you, if that's important to you. They have a higher level leadership position, if that's important to you. Whatever is important to you. If you want to evolve spiritually, hang out with people that are more evolved spiritually, right? One of my mentors, Justin, the same gentleman I mentioned earlier, is very impactful in my life. He says all the time, you might want to write this one down, folks. He says, we are products of the books we read and the people we hang out with. Another way to say that is we're products of the books we read and the people with whom we associate, whoever you're hanging out with. And there's this other concept called the power of 5. The power of 5. And the power of 5 states that you will become the combination of the average of your top 5 closest friends. Okay. And when I first heard of this, they talked about it in the sense of money. When I first became an entrepreneur, I won't be shy. I wanted to make 6 figures. I had never done that before. For some of you, that might not ever be a goal. For some of you, you're already making 6 figures. You want to make 7 figures. You know, for some of you, you might just want to make 50 grand, whatever it is, doesn't matter. And it might not even be about money. I just know that when I first started as an entrepreneur 15 years ago, that was important to me. I wanted to make 6 figures and I wanted to just become more successful. I didn't even know what personal growth was. I was money motivated at the time. You know, it's not a big deal. And in this power of 5, let's use that example, making more money. Let's say you want to make more money. So I challenge you, if that's the case, to look at the top 5 people you hang out with. Think about what you think they make, Just guess if you don't know, because you probably don't want to go ask them unless you're really close with them. Think about what they probably make, add that all up, and then divide by 5. And you're going to get an average. The power of 5 states that your income will likely be within about 5% of the top 5 people you hang out with. When I found out that, Pete, I got rid of all my friends. I'm just kidding. I did not do that. I didn't do that at all. But I did start to hang out with more people like Justin. I started to add to my network. And I know I made a joke there, but don't think that you can't disassociate yourself with perhaps some people that might be toxic in your life. I'm not saying cut people out of your life like your family or whatever. Unless something's really, really, really toxic, then, consult your coach or whoever you want to consult, or your source. Do what you ever do. But I'm not saying that. I'm saying add more people, though, that are going to uplift you. Add more people that are 5, 10, 50 steps ahead of you that you can learn and grow from, right? And I'm a firm believer that your power, your network determines your net worth. A lot of people say that. Your network determines your net worth, right? How much your value is financially. But I'm here to argue and say, Pete, that your net worth or your network determines everything. Your network determines your level of physical fitness. Your network determines your level of speaking ability. Your network determines your level of leadership capacity. Your network determines how much money you make. Your network determines your physical fitness. I think I already said that one. Your spiritual awareness. Your network determines everything, right? And when we find people that are not just 5, 10, 15 steps ahead of us or 50 steps ahead of us, we're going to go to step 3 now. Look for people that are 5,000 steps ahead of you. That's M for mentor. LNM. M is for mentor. The third way that you can up-level your beliefs, right? Start to surround yourself with people that are 5,000 steps ahead of you. Who are the people that are already being the kind of person you want to become? Who are the people that are doing the kind of things you want to do in life? Who are the people that have the kind of results that you want to have? They're making the level of impact that you want to make, right? Who are those people? And model them, right? What do I mean by model? I mean, copy them. Copy them. In school, they call it cheating, Pete. In the real world, they call it being smart. Copy them. Go where they go, read the books that they read, do what they do, and eventually you'll have what they have. Now, of course, there's always that 1% of people, and I'm always trying to speak to everybody in the room. There's 1% of the people right now, they're like, well, I don't want to, I'm not all about making money, or I'm not all about this, or someone could be a triathlete and be a total douche, right? Well, of course, don't model them where they're a douche. Model them in their habits of physical fitness. Model them in that unique niche of their life where they have the level of results that you want to have, right? Nobody's perfect. They're not going to be a model citizen in every area of their life. I'm not saying that, right? And I think 99% of the people listening knew that, but I just want to make sure I'm not alienating anybody. Find those people that you can model, right? And find ways to add value to their lives, right? So listen to your language, up-level your network, and find mentors and model them. And when you start to do that, you're going to start to see not only your own limiting beliefs that are limiting you, you're going to start to hear things that these people are saying that are empowering beliefs. Like when you start hanging around with people that have a very positive mindset, when you say you want to make 6 figures, they're not saying, oh, how are you going to do that? They're saying that's awesome. I know somebody that's doing that right now, or I want to be a triathlete. That's awesome. What are you thinking your first step's going to be? Right? That's all forward. It's called green light thinking. No yeah buts, no how abouts, no how are you going to do that? You don't get stuck in the how hole with people that are empowering, that are uplifting you. And that's how we begin to up-level our beliefs and start implanting new positive beliefs. That's how we create momentum in our lives and get what we want.
It's so powerful, and well, again, thank you for sharing so much. I'm struck as well, I suppose, that people, and as humans, we don't always see, the eye can't see itself. So I suppose when, that's kind of why mentorship is key, right? So that helps somebody not it's not to pull apart, your faults and your flaws and all the rest, but to build on your strengths and your capabilities, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I in speaking to what you just said, and getting things pointed out by mentors and by people that are just further along than you, the way that I actually work with my aspiring speakers is, I teach them the world-class speaker principles, but that doesn't make them world-class. They got to go out and like do the reps. By the way, if anybody's just listening to this on the podcast, I'm doing I'm pumping iron right now. Right. I'm doing curls. And they got to do the reps. They got to get on stages. And same thing with triathletes. Like, you got to go get in races. You got to go hit the streets and run. You're not just going to watch a video and become a world-class athlete or become a world-class speaker unless you get on stages. But then you have to have people that are in front of you, like a coach or a mentor, that's able to guide you and help you make correction. And what happens is now you have a deepened level of awareness. Anyone that's developed world-class level of speaking or anything in their lives, Pete, it's my belief that world class, that doesn't mean speakers speak all around the world, although I can definitely help you do that if you want. Or it doesn't even mean you're going to make $10,000 a gig. I can help do that too. But what it means is being able to impact an audience at the highest level possible, right? And we can only do that when we have a deepened level of awareness. So world class in anything just means a deepened level of awareness of your gifts, your strengths, your weaknesses, what motivates you, your values. Do you notice how everything I'm talking about is everything in the world of personal growth and development that I talked about earlier, very distinct from academic development? That's why it's so powerful to forever, and starting today, if you're not already, to be living courageously on this path of continuous self-discovery. You got to learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I don't think I answered your question because I went on a tangent there. I don't remember your question, but I hope that was valuable. And you can restate your question if I didn't answer it.
It was along the lines, I suppose. I mean, again, it was sort of talking about mentorship and how we can't necessarily see our own, not our limiting beliefs, but actually that exposure. And what I'm picking up is almost, it's like the pride of lions. If you want to be a lion, hang with the lions, and ultimately
Yes.
your beliefs are either gonna fall away, or they're gonna get pointed out or whatever. But you learn to roar like a lion, and you become part of the tribe.
Yes, absolutely. And if you want to live with passion and live with purpose and live a great life, listen to more of Pete's episodes, right? Because that's what his show is all about. Talking with people that are doing that. So yeah, it's the same concept. Surround yourself with people on the same mission as yourself and watch what happens.
For you, when you get passionate, what are we looking at? And you're talking about, you're pumping iron, what physical characteristics are we seeing from you?
Tell me more about that question. What do you mean by
I
that?
mean, I suppose when I talk about people where they find their flow, they find their fire in their belly, and suddenly they are, that they will speak. I mean, I generally know I've found someone's fire in their belly in their passion project because they don't shut up. They will talk
Yes.
for 2 hours nonstop. And I'm curious to know your characteristics, because people tend to get very elevated. So my point is, I'm trying to help people to say, listen, people say, I don't know what I'm passionate about, but if you find yourself off on a rant on something, or, something
Yes.
you keep finding yourself doing, well, maybe it's your passion project.
I love this question, Pete. And hopefully you guys can tell, and gals out there listening, that speaking and sharing and the name of my keynote speech is Reigniting Your Human Spirit, for crying out loud. Like, that's what I am passionate about. And perhaps I'll get an opportunity to share that story later on. But I believe 100% in what Pete just said about when you start talking fast about something. Not everybody's a fast talker. And this might not be true for 100% of the population. You might have a different way of expressing this. But when you get excited about something like Pete's talking about, and you ask somebody about their kids, oh my goodness, sometimes you can't get them to shut up, right? And it's not a bad thing. That's why it's a great strategy for building connection and rapport when you're out networking. You always want to do it with genuineness. You don't want to do it just as a trick, but you really want to be curious about people and like how they've achieved success. What are they passionate about? What do they love? What keeps them up at night? What are the things that in a good way, like what breaks their heart keeps them up at night, like a nonprofit or something. Get them talking about something like that. And man, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's that fast talking. And I've done it several times when we've been on this call because I'm fired up about this stuff. So when you start noticing yourself doing that, just like Pete said, take recognition of that, journal about it. And some things I call black sheep habits. Start to participate in black sheep habits, right? One of them is journaling. What I mean by that is not everyone's willing to journal. Not everyone's willing to meditate. Not everyone's willing to visualize, right? And I've got plenty of stories around all this too. But those are some of the, what I call black sheep habits, is some of the most successful and most fulfilled people on the planet participate in, because it gives them clarity. It gives them inspiration. But people always ask me, Pete, how do I find my passion? It's a valid question, considering I talk about reigniting your human spirit and living your dream life now, and being inspired to express your unique message and enabling courage and confidence and yada, yada, yada. But when they ask me, they literally have asked me this from stage and one-on-one and coaching sessions as well. Say, how do I find my passion? And I say, if you're looking for your purpose, stop. And they usually ask me, how do I find my purpose, not my passion? How do I find my purpose? But I'll back into that passion as well in a sec. I say, if you're looking for your purpose, stop. And that stops them in their tracks. They're like, what? They didn't expect me to say that. I say, if you're looking for your purpose, stop. It will be there waiting for you when you start doing the things that you love, right? Now, I don't mean it's just hanging out, but what I do mean is that it gets revealed to you when you start doing the things you love. So now people can say, well, all right, what do I love? What am I passionate about? What if I don't know what I'm passionate about? Well, let's throttle it back a step even before that. What are you interested in? Like, seriously, what are you interested in? What are the things that you're interested in? And this sounds remedial, but do this anyways. It will work. It leads you on a path. It creates momentum, creates positive momentum. It creates a positive vibration energy in your body that allows you to attract more things in your life. And the law of attraction, I'm telling you, there's a lot of levels of teaching that I'm giving you right now. You might not be picking up all of them, but just start to think about, what do I like? And go do that. If you like flying remote control airplanes, join a club and go do that. Just go do it. Does that mean you're going to start a business about remote control airplanes? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. It might lead you to something like that, but it puts you in a higher level vibration, puts you in this state of joy, right? And Mark Victor Hansen will talk to you all day about this stuff, but it'll put you in this state of joy and it will lead you to something else. I've always been someone that's followed my intuition, Pete. And like, if you don't know what your intuition is out there, your intuition is that knowingness that I talked about earlier, right? It's not a logical knowingness. It's this feeling type knowingness that something is true and something is the right thing to do. I've always been someone that followed my intuition. And your intuition will guide you, right? When you're doing things that you love, things that you like, your intuition will speak to you. You'll be driving home from that and you'll think of somebody, or you'll think of an idea, or you'll just have the feeling like, wow, I really loved that. And you join another club or you do something else that deepens your like for that. All of a sudden you're turning an interest into a passion, potentially. Doesn't happen with everything you like, but this is how if you don't know even what you're passionate about, forget about your purpose. If you don't even know what you're passionate about, just start doing the things that you like, that you have interest in, and use your intuition to guide you. And it might not be overnight, like, oh, I'm going to do one thing I like and all of a sudden my purpose is revealed. No, it took me several years. Does that mean it has to take you several years? No, it could take you one time. It could take you a week. It could take you a year. Just be on the path. That's the key. Be on the path. Be engaged in your own life. Be engaged in what lights you up, because that like will turn into a love, will turn into a passion. And now you're out there doing things that you're passionate about, doing things that put you in what I like to call the flow, right? What I mean by the flow is this path of least resistance. I don't necessarily mean that when you're in the flow, it's easy, but there is a sense of ease and effortlessness and grace when you're doing something. And you probably can all picture something you do in your life. For me, it's jumping on stage. Somebody asks me a question, boom, I'm in the flow immediately, because that's where I actually think the best. I get the most clarity when I'm speaking. It's crazy. Some people get the most clarity when they're writing, or when they're thinking about something in their mind, or they have to be doing something tactile. So start to pay attention, really become more conscious. Remember, we talked about awareness. All consciousness is bringing more awareness to everything you're doing in your life. Bring more awareness to what turns you on in your day to day. And you start to notice things that you want to do more of. You start to notice things that put you in the flow. That, again, back to being in the flow, that's where your time flies by. Things are there's a sense of effortless to them. And you actually are adding the most value, right? It's where you're getting the most life, or the activity doesn't deplete you. It actually gives you joy and it gives you life. You could do it all day long. That, my friends, is where you actually add the most value. Anyone out there that has a team, help them find their flow in your business. It might not even be in the same role they're in right now. It might mean you have to change up, the roles or the job functions, right? I used to be a director of recruiting and talent acquisitions, and used a lot of this in corporate as well as for entrepreneurs. But ultimately, find that thing that you feel like you're in the flow and start doing it. For me, I'll give you an example. I wanted to be a speaker, but I didn't even know that. I just knew that when I was speaking, it felt good. When I was in an opportunity to be able to just think on my feet, it felt good. So what did I do? I volunteered at my spiritual center to be the host, the greeter. I volunteered to actually do the announcements, right, on the microphone. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. It was kind of scary, right? It was in that intersection between knowing that it was the right thing because I felt it, and the not knowing how it was actually going to turn out. That's where the magic happens, right? And all of a sudden, those lead to more passion, more inspiration around that thing that you quote unquote liked or you had passion around. And all of a sudden, I start doing this on more and more stages. I start getting more and more opportunities. And my purpose is revealed to me along that path. Now, there's many other things that happened, but ultimately that's what I mean by when I say, if you're looking for your purpose, stop. That's not the place to start. Start doing the things you love. Your purpose will be revealed to you in due time, at the right time. When you learn to trust and follow your intuition and just do the things that make you feel good at the base level as a freaking human being. That's what we're designed to be, to do, to have, to feel good. And I always say this, I'll end on this here, Pete, and if you want to move on to something else, it's up to you. But I believe that we all actually have the same purpose. That's what I believe. Is it true? I don't know. That's what I believe. I believe we all have the same purpose. And that purpose is to find ways to be in service to other people inside of our greatest gift. So what does that mean? That means find things you like, turn them into your passion. Some of them will turn into passion. Some of them will be like, you know what? I actually didn't like that as much as I thought I did. And your purpose gets revealed to you along the path while you're taking action. You don't just sit around and think about your purpose, right? You take action. You up-level your limiting beliefs by listening to your language, up-leveling your network, finding mentors that already have what you have, already are doing what you want to do. They're already being the kind of person you want to become. And you watch the magic and miracles that unfold in front of you, right? There's actually a magical success formula that I can share in a moment, if you like, that really gets you pumped up and in momentum on this path. And that's how, what I believe, what we can do if we're wondering what our purpose is. My thought on what I believe everybody has the same purpose. It's, again, to be in service to others inside of our greatest gift. So find that thing that is your greatest gift, that gives you life, that gives you joy, that gives you energy. Find a way that you can actually be in service to other people, doing that, being that kind of person, operating at that high vibration where you're like life, it's giving you life to actually do it. And it's fun and it's effortless and it's easy. And it's like, not that everything's going to be easy. Like I shouldn't say the word easy, but there's a sense of ease and there's joy. And that's where you're adding the most freaking value. That's why we're all here. To find that thing that we're meant to be and do and have. Find the thing that you like. let it turn into a passion, let your purpose be revealed, find ways to be in service to other people. Boom. That's fulfillment, baby. That's fulfillment.
Wow. I love that. So I mean, your gift. Would you say your gift and your passion and your purpose are they one all in the same? Do you think?
No, there's not. They're not. In fact, there's this concept called ikigai. Have you ever heard of ikigai?
I have actually,
So,
but please do explain.
okay. So y'all might want to write this down. All right. So I'm actually going to look up the definition here because we're online. I can do that. I'm just going to read you the exact definition. Ikigai, it's Japanese, if you haven't noticed that already. It's a concept that means a reason for being. Okay. Reason for being. And perhaps you want to provide them an image of this in the show notes if you want, or I can provide you one. But ultimately, there's 4 areas that it talks about. It talks about your passion, your mission, I'm going to actually use a different way to say it. It talks about what you love, talks about what the world needs, talks about what you can get paid for, and then what you're good at. So what you're good at would be more like your gift, right? That's the thing that like your talents. What you love is more like your passion, right? What the world needs is more like your mission, right? And what you can get paid for is more like your business model. Like how do you actually want to add that value to the world? And I would say your purpose can be potentially an overarching piece to all of this that everything sort of points towards. Like I have a purpose of co-creating and co-causing. I'm not trying to say I'm Neo, like I'm the one, right? But to be one of the thought leaders, the transformational leaders in the space of causing a global tipping point in possibility consciousness, where people actually walk around feeling like, wow, anything's possible, instead of the vast majority of people walking around saying, wow, it's not possible for me, or worse than that, nothing's possible, right? So it's being in that conversation and causing a global tipping point by December 31st, 2029. That is my vision for my life. And really my vision, purpose are kind of the same thing. My mission is to help launch 1,000 aspiring speakers businesses that also want to uplift humanity, because I know I can't do it myself. That's why I love coaching other speakers, because I can't do it by myself. I need help, right? So I don't know that I answered your question directly. Your purpose, your mission, your vision, it depends on who you ask and what definition you look up online. I would just say, look it up online and choose the one that best serves you, but get clear about what they are for yourself. You might not be able to answer all of it right away, like your purpose, but get clear about like, what are you really good at? What are you just good at that maybe you could make money if you want to become an entrepreneur? And then combine that with what are you not only good at, but it comes to you effortlessly and it actually gives you life. It gives you joy when you do it. That's your flow. That's what I mean by flow. And I know we're using a lot of terms right now, and just choose whatever they mean for you in this conversation. And that's the most important thing. And then when you can couple that with a problem that the world has, or something that the world needs, where you could solve a problem, that's where you can be in service to other people. And you could get paid for it. Like, holy cow, what better life than that is there, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, some people maybe don't want to be entrepreneurs, but you can still find ways to be in service to other people inside of your greatest gift.
There's so much there. I think we're going to give people some processing time.
Yes, please.
Take us back. Junior Clinton, mini Clinton. What are we looking at? What sort of a guy are you? You normal? What sort of a kid are we talking to?
Okay, so I was always the class clown as a kid. Little kid. Are you talking about like little kid stuff?
Yeah. All the way back.
I was a little kid and, goofy, and I have kind of a long torso and kind of a bigger head. You might not be able to tell on video. Maybe I've grown into it. I don't know. Skinny kid with a big head is kind of how I identified when I was a little kid. And so much so that every once in a while I'd kind of like tilt to one side. No, seriously, it was big. And, always trying to be funny and just get a laugh out of people. And, and that's kind of how I grew up, even though I was shy. I actually was shy. I'm trying to think of the time when I actually started to become shy. Because as little kids, like we're totally fully self-expressed. And then like probably the thing that happened to me in third grade, where, like I said, this teacher said something that I felt like it meant I was stupid. And maybe I was a little less self-expressed after that. Right. So I'd say that's a little bit about my childhood.
What's your earliest memory?
Earliest memory. Wow. Okay. Well, the first thing that popped in my head, I don't know if it's the earliest one. Weird memory to be the one that popped in my head. I had these new sneakers. I was probably 6 or 7 walking, and my grandfather and grandmother always used to get me new sneakers before school. Because I grew up and it was pretty blue collar. And if that term's not normal out there in some other countries that are listening, and just my parents didn't have a ton of money. They worked in the mills. They weren't like college skilled. They were more like trade skilled. It doesn't mean you have to not have a lot of money. My family just didn't have a lot of money. And my grandparents would buy me these sneakers. And I remember walking when we were going fishing, and I got a grass stain on them the day before school. And I was like shattered. I was like, what? Grass stain on my new sneakers? I remember they were white with maroon. I think they were cons. They were pretty badass, but yeah, I don't know why I remember that, but that's the first thing that popped in my head. Oh, I have another one. Shoot. You're trying to get psychological on me now. I'll give you one here. Maybe you can play with. My house was unfinished as a kid. I grew up, and my dad and my mom were hippies, and and my dad had an alcohol problem. So, he worked hard, but he also drank hard. And, my mom, my dad worked for the town. He snowplowed the roads, and he worked for the town, like cleaning up, that kind of stuff. And my mom worked in the school system as an administrative assistant, and she cleaned houses on the side. That was kind of her side gig. And always, filled with love, but not a lot of money, like I said. So not that really mattered to this conversation, but just to give you a little backstory. And where was I going with that? I was telling you something about
Early memory.
Oh yeah. So my house was unfinished. We literally, for the first few years, I don't remember this part, but the house literally was a foundation, and that's it. The foundation, like underground, some of it's above ground, but it's all concrete, and it just had a roof, which ultimately would become the floor to the upstairs. So I grew up in that for, I think I only spent a few years there. I don't really remember that part. My memories of living in a house were a house that did have the rest of the house built, but it wasn't fully built. Like my room didn't have walls, Pete. It had the studs, the beams, the studs. It had those. I could see right into my sister's room. I could see right downstairs, and I could see over to my brother's room on the other side of the house. No walls until I was probably 13. I didn't have walls. And my floor, much of the floor, and I've got a funny story to tell in a second. My floor that used to be the ceiling, or used to be the roof, was now the floor of our second level. And it had tar paper on it. So I would literally walk on that and my feet would turn black. Like that was my normal. And a funny story here, we're at Christmas time and we had a family over, and I was embarrassed, by the way, to even have friends over. Like totally, you can probably imagine a little kid, the ego starts coming in, and I'm like, that's not okay. I'm not normal. Right. And, but one family that we were close with, they would come over quite often because, they just always had. So this little girl, she's 2 years younger than me. She's upstairs in the third floor in my bedroom. It was actually my sister's bedroom. And how houses that have like a kind of a peak, and then there's these eaves on the outside. And on the eaves, that's where there was supposed to be like a closet, because it's, it's a small amount of space. And she crawls in there, and all there is insulation on the floor. So this is Christmas time. We're all sitting downstairs where the tree is up, fully lit, right? And all of a sudden, this little girl, Leanna, comes flying through the ceiling and lands on the Christmas tree. She didn't know that there was no floor in that part of the room because it was supposed to be blocked off. But she went in there in the little closet area and she goes right down, landed right on top of the Christmas tree. So that's my house. Like, that's how I grew up. And that's another kind of funny memory that I had. But the memory I was going to share with you was, it's probably cause for me to look a little further at what this might have created in my life for limiting beliefs. Is I remember that I hid one time. We didn't even have like rooms. We didn't have closets. We just had like clothing that was hung on like a beam or a bar that was hung up. And this was in the basement in my parents' room, if you will. And I didn't want to be found for some reason. So I was hiding behind the jackets. And I was just hiding for long enough for them to worry and to look for me. And I found that there's a few opportunities. I don't know why I'm telling you this. You said we might start telling you things that we didn't think we'd tell you. Well, here's one of them. And you know, another example of that is I did the same thing on a bus. I fell asleep on a bus. By the way, if you ever fall asleep in a personal growth workshop or anything that you're about to learn something, what that means is your brain is being triggered, it's being challenged, and you're about to learn something big, or you have an opportunity for a breakthrough, to break through a limiting belief, and your brain doesn't want any part of it. Your brain sees that as a saber-toothed tiger, it sees that as danger, and it shuts down your brain and you get tired. Okay, I'm giving you the psychology of what's actually happening when you're in class. That's actually what's happening. Now, sometimes you just didn't get enough sleep the night before, but that is what will trigger it as well. It'll trigger you to get more tired than you normally would be. So pay attention to that and like pound some water and wake up because you're about to learn something big. So anyways, I fell asleep on a bus when I was a little kid, and I went all the way back to where the bus driver like drops off the bus. And they figured out there was still a kid on the bus. And it was something about like being noticed. So I'm still uncovering like what that could mean, because that happened a few times in my life with that first example I shared, hiding in the coats and then sleeping on the bus. So.
And you talked about being a joker. I'm just curious to know how that was serving you, or maybe it's all in the same.
Well, as a joker, it's funny. Even today, like one of the things that is on my bucket list is to become a stand-up comedian, because I don't even feel like I'm that funny. Although when I'm in the flow and and I'm just rocking, like I can be funny. Like today, I'm trying to give like a lot of value, so I'm not trying to be as funny, and maybe I'll let that go for the rest of the session here. But I've always sort of premeditated how I want. It's important for me that people feel good. And my superpower that I've discovered over the years is emotions. I studied emotional intelligence in grad school as well because I'm so interested in it. And I've just always been very psychological the way I think, and emotional the way I think, and I can feel emotions like very intensely. And I can sometimes also feel other people's emotions, not to freak anybody out here, but I'm very empathic. And so I want to remember what I was about to say, and I just did. I wanted to, when I was a little kid, be a jokester because I wanted to make people feel good. So I would literally remember, like I would think about like, all right, what can I say when I go back into the room to make people laugh? And I would like play it out in my head, and then I would do it, and it would work. So I'd be like, oh wow, that worked. So like I would always do that because I want to make people feel good. And it's probably because I wanted to feel good as well. And I wanted to feel accepted, right? Maybe it's because I didn't want to feel stupid, right? I wanted to feel witty. Maybe that's why I created this sort of defense mechanism, if you will, if you want to call it that. But it's always served me. And it has me this imprinted desire to want to do stand-up, because that's exactly what they do. They create a whole set and they want to impact the masses through their set, through their comedy. I don't know if I'm giving you what I know. That the interview has taken a total change in shifting gears here. So hopefully I'm giving you what you want, but
I told you we were getting the spades out and we're going down the rabbit hole, and that's cool.
all
I'm
right.
just, and you may or may not want to go into this. I'm just curious. Do you know why your father was an alcoholic?
I think it probably has something to do with, I had a conversation with him about this about a few months ago, about a month ago, actually. And my grandmother, his mom, I feel, now I'm making some massive assumptions. She's not alive anymore. And I was pretty young, fairly young when she died, but I'm making some massive assumptions. I could be totally wrong, but he seemed to resonate when I said this. And I said that, um, I thought that my grandmother, his mom, had a feeling of not being smart and a feeling of not being a contribution. And I feel like she took it out on my dad. My dad was the youngest of three children. They were 5 years apart. So by the time he was 5, or 8, his brother was off in the military and his sister was, what's that, like 13 or whatever. So it was kind of him. And he said that he felt like he was potentially like unplanned for or a mistake. And maybe my grandmother resented him for that. But I feel like she took out her feeling of not being good enough, which again, I feel is one of the most common feelings that people have in limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough. I feel like she took that out on my dad, and it really had my dad create this persona or this belief that he's not good enough. And I feel like it's a combination of that. And I think I know that my dad has some level of anxiety when he's around people, which I've also experienced in my life, that has caused me to drink as well. I don't really drink at all anymore. And I've never been classified as an alcoholic, but I definitely, when I drank, I really enjoyed it. And it generally would a lot of times get me in trouble in some respects. So I think, and it was a very similar pattern that he had as well. And I think it had something to do with just feeling uncomfortable around people. And then also some element of feeling like maybe he wasn't good enough, again, which is a very common feeling that I've spoken with him about. I don't have that validated, but I have a feeling that's probably something that he experienced. And then just the common like stress of not having a lot of money. He worked his ass off. Like he's the guy. This is something I really respect about my dad and that I get partly from my dad as well. He's a black belt in karate. Anyone that has a black belt, first of all, is a badass mofo, but more importantly, they've put in the time. They've got the mental toughness more so than the physical toughness to actually do that. And also another thing I really admire about my dad is, he's the guy that would get the call at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? Middle of the night, and say, "Hey, Dave, we need you out to salt the roads to protect," ultimately they didn't say this, but it's to protect everyone else. Right. So he's a hero in that respect, that he would get up and so funny. This isn't really that appropriate, but he would commonly just be like, balls. He would just like yell that word, balls. So funny. Like, it's funny to me. I don't know. Maybe it's not funny to you, but anytime you get that damn call, but you know what? There wasn't a time I ever knew that he didn't go. He went every single time and plowed the roads until 5 a.m. or whatever it took to make sure that the roads were safe for other people. And then he'd come back and, go to sleep. So there's a few things I really admire about my dad.
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, what sort of comes up as you speak, and just picking up is it's kind of a bit like the cobbler's kids. I don't know, it's almost like, they're so busy, and even yourself. I mean, you're so giving in your spirit and your time and your energy. Similar to, it sounds like, your father, that actually potentially to your own sacrifice. Your own home and what you need. So it
Yeah.
just that's. I don't know. I'm sort of, hopefully I'm not distorting or picking up, but I just thought that was super interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that I need to keep in check. In fact, I'm always getting coaching as well. I'm always in a coaching program or mastermind. And I just went through one with a bunch of amazing global entrepreneurs. And one of the things I really got out of that, Pete, was it's almost like there's two legs, right? We've got two legs. If we could do like a visual here of two legs of your inner game and your outer game. And you could look at this with your business. You could look at this with your life. You could look at this with anything. I'm just going to look at it with, let's say, my spiritual world and presence, my spiritual life, my presence, my personal growth and development. I feel is all intertwined with spiritual growth and development. For me, it is, anyways. And if I'm not nurturing that through doing some of the black sheep habits, like I talked about earlier, like meditation and visualization, and really just having patience with myself and practicing empathy and love for myself and for others, and really just slowing down. If I'm not doing that and I'm focused on, all right, how am I going to market? How am I going to speak more? Although speaking does give me life, but the marketing doesn't. So there's another example, like in a business, marketing, and doing all the business systems and all that is one leg. If I focus on that, I'm taking a step forward with that leg, 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 taking a step, right? All of a sudden I'm doing a donut, I'm doing a circle. If I do one thing, I need to also get out there and speak, right? And be in my flow, do the things that are in my flow, and then do the things that aren't in my flow in the business, where I've got to, make sure outsourcing is good, make sure my team is putting things together, make sure my videos are getting up on YouTube, and then I got to get out and speak. And then I got to get, right? So it's like moving one leg forward and keeping the other leg going. Same thing with like spiritual world and relationships. My marriage with my wife is the most important. My connection to God, my health, and my marriage with my wife are the three most important things above and beyond my business. My business is number 4. And the business is kind of a total other side. It's like, that's the other leg. So I've got to have balance between what's important to me to be spiritually connected and feel like I'm operating from source, being connected to my wife at a deep, intimate level, which I'm consistently working on and do not have any of these mastered, by the way. I'm not saying I do. And then also being connected to just, my own, just being present. And then also my business and moving that forward very tactically and practically. And so it's like consistently making sure the legs are moving forward and taking steps in both.
I love that. And you use the word alignment, about trying to keep it all in balance, and balance something you mentioned previously. So it's not easy, right? Listen, you've passions, desires. I mean, missions, visions, values, all going on at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what did Minnie Clinton want to do when he sort of grew up?
Minnie Clinton. I'm not even sure what the heck I wanted to do when I was a little kid. But it's interesting. I grew up very sheltered in a very predominantly white neighborhood. I already mentioned, didn't make a lot of money. My parents didn't, and not a lot of education, although smart, but not a lot of higher education until later in life. My mom did go and get her degrees. My dad was in the military. That's how he kind of grew up as a man, if you will, and then worked in mills and then worked for the town, as I mentioned, as well. But Minnie Clinton, I was very sheltered, and I had this girlfriend in high school that was, I would say, like international, even though she was totally like American from the US or whatever. But her dad was from Peru, South America. And her mom was actually Irish. I don't think she grew up in Ireland, but she had Irish roots. So she was Irish Peruvian, go figure. And that relationship really introduced me to something that was different than the normal stuff that I grew up with, different foods, different language with her dad, and just a little bit of diversity. And it's interesting that actually ended up becoming one of my biggest passions. So one of the first things I remembered, it wasn't really, I think, as Minnie Clinton, but I was definitely a lot younger than I am now at 44. I believe I was 21-ish. And that same girl, we weren't together anymore, but she was in Singapore. And I just had this intuitive call that I needed to go to Singapore and visit her. Again, I always followed my intuition. Before I even knew what intuition was, I'd always followed it, and it always worked out. So it's just kind of my model of how the world worked. And so I went, and that's what again lit my passion for culture. And I remember taking I was a psychology major in undergrad. And at this point, it was about 2 years after I graduated. I remember taking an industrial and organizational psychology class, and I was really passionate about that as well. It's like the psychology of business, if nobody's ever heard of org psych. That's a really remedial way of saying it. But so when I went overseas, I was like lit up by this passion. I was like, wow. And I remembered earlier in my life, again, I don't think I was a little kid, but I remembered wanting to explore this great unknown world called international, called global, called diversity, called culture. And that's what like put a flamethrower underneath me. And I went to grad school and studied organizational psychology and got my master's in that. And I studied specifically the cultural adjustment process that people go through when they get sent overseas on a work assignment or they're involved in a merger and acquisition. And I combined that with the construct of emotional intelligence, saying that I thought that, and my hypothesis was that the more emotional intelligent you were, the higher IQ score you had, the more likely you would be at being able to adapt culturally. So that was like my passion. And that ultimately led me to my dream job and blah, blah, blah. It led me to California, led me to become an entrepreneur, led me to Justin, led me to become a speaker all around the world. And now I'm an international keynote speaker and world-class coach for aspiring speakers. And I have clients all around the world, and I travel all around the world because I love culture. So like Minnie Clinton had something like, I was deprived almost of culture and travel, and we never went on vacations as a kid and international. And I don't think I knew like, hey, I want to be an international businessman, but there was something calling me to do something international, I think, before I even knew it. So I don't have a definitive answer for you. Like I wanted to be a fireman or I wanted to be an astronaut. I don't really remember as a little kid, to be honest with you, beyond what I just shared.
It's awesome. And thank you for sharing it. And it's amazing almost that you were sort of driven, kind of pain driven, if you like, in terms of, what was out there, what was possible. And it's interesting that the international seems to have actually played a big role for you all the way through the years, both in Early Girlfriend right through to, sort of now, in terms of being international speaker, there's so much there for you.
Yeah. And the story that I share sometimes about how I learned of the law of attraction before I even knew what it was called. I had a very, very palpable experience and ended up living in Brazil it led me to living in Brazil, led me to living in Singapore, and ultimately led me to moving to California. Was really, it was that drive and passion for culture that led me to even experience any of that. I might not have ever experienced the law of attraction, which ultimately led me to personal growth and development, everything always happens perfectly. When I talk to my aspiring speakers, they're like, I don't know what my story is. Well, that's part of their story. The fact that they think they don't have a story, or I don't have anything that really big happened to me. Well, that's part of your story, right? So the reason I say that is, everything always happens perfectly. We are perfectly designed to be exactly where we are right now. And that vision we have in our lives, we're actually perfectly designed to be that as well. And there's something that happened in our lives, and I appreciate you kind of digging in a little bit here as well. It's helping me kind of reframe things and look at my life a little from a different perspective. I really challenge everybody that's listening to really get interested in these kind of questions for yourself as well, because it helps. And we're designed, everything's always perfect. It's always perfect.
Are you where you're supposed to be?
I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. Yes. And I'm on my path to achieving what right now is my vision. And it could change as I get to step P in the alphabetical formula here or the process. But I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be right now. And anywhere I am, I'm exactly where I need to be, because there's always something to learn, even if it's uncomfortable or it doesn't seem like it's giving you what you need. Like let's see, how many years ago? 2011, 2010. So 10 years ago, I find myself in a call center after making 6 figures in multiple years, having all this time, flexibility, and freedom. All of a sudden, it's a sobering day. I find myself walking into a broke down call center, right? And I'm about to pound the phones every day, making cold calls out to business owners across the US and selling opportunities for them to be advertisers in a high school sports calendar, making $8 an hour. Okay. So not that there's anything wrong with that, making $8 an hour or that type of role, but that was totally like a step back, it felt like in the time, but it was exactly where I needed to be. It was exactly where I needed to be. And I got so much value out of that experience that I leverage even to this day. It's part of my story. It's always perfect. It's always perfect. We're put in positions and in places in our lives with an opportunity to learn something. And sometimes it's painful as shit. But you know what? Even though it doesn't seem perfect in the moment, it generally always, it's not even gonna say generally, it always is perfect. It's exactly what we're supposed to learn.
It's always interesting, and I love the fact, you talk about your intuition and and how strong it is. Uh, Curiously though, I mean, and again, it's always just one of those sort of interview questions, but I mean, what sort of would you do for many sort of Clinton now, with where you're at? What would you be saying, and could you be guided? Is there anything you do sort of advise?
You mean if I were to give Minnie Clinton some advice right now?
Sure.
Um, Continue to live courageously. And what I mean by that is follow your intuition.
Hmm.
Like I'm telling you, I believe this to the core of my being. That tingly feel, that tingly feeling you feel when you're, let's say do you have kids, Pete? Okay. So when you're holding one of your kids, when they're being sweet to you, and that tingly feeling you feel, that feeling of love, that feeling. I can see you nodding. You know what I'm talking about. For some of you who don't have kids, maybe it's when you're petting your dog or your cat, or you're thinking of a loved one, or that time you first fell in love, that tingly, warm feeling, right? It's the same feeling you might feel when you're listening to a beautiful piece of music and it totally just moves you and inspires you. Or you watch a musician in the moment live and they're just so in the flow, like we talked about earlier, where they're like in their gift. They are so in it. And the reason why we get the tingles and we love that is because that's what we're all designed to do. Remember how I said be in service to others inside of your greatest gift? Well, that musician is just being in service to others inside of their greatest gift. And that's attractive. That's sexy because that's what we're here for. That is what we're here for. So that's why we get those tingles. Or you also might feel these feelings, this tingly, warm feeling when you're watching a movie. Like one of the most inspiring movies I've ever watched is actually a movie about an animal. I find a lot of animal movies are very inspiring. Secretariat. It's the greatest racehorse that's ever lived. It is so dang inspiring. I move to tears every time I watch it. I've seen it a million times. Every single time, gusher. Look out. And I'm not afraid to say that. Like I said, I'm in touch with my emotions. I think they're my superpower, and I think they're the most powerful thing that anybody can get in touch with. And I'm also very understanding and know that everybody's designed differently, and not everybody is going to feel them as deeply as others. But I feel that every person on the planet has an opportunity to feel those tingles, right? And what I like to say is it's that feeling, that warm, tingly feeling, that's the reason why we're all alive. To be able to feel that feeling, that warm, tingly feeling, and to be able to find ways to give that feeling to other people. And that's what I said earlier about everyone having the same purpose, being in service to others inside of your greatest gift, feeling those tingles and giving those tingles to other people. That's one example I feel of intuition, right? Another example is when somebody says something somebody says something to you and it just like, boom, you just resonate. If that ever happened, somebody said something, you just felt the tingles. Hopefully some of you have felt that a few times in some of the things that maybe Pete or I have said on this session, right? When you feel it, that for me, I always say, oh, it must be true, Pete, because I just got the tingles. That's the truth. That is my emotional guidance system. Esther Hicks, amazing. If you want to Google her, she's amazing. And she talks a lot about your emotional guidance system. I always say one of my taglines, Pete, is follow the tingles. So that's what I would tell little Clinton, Minnie Clinton. Follow the tingles, man. I was already doing it anyways, and I didn't even know what the heck it was. I was just following my intuition. But when you learn to truly follow it and trust it, then you can actually supercharge it. You can start to co-create what it is that you want when you start to understand some of the laws of the universe, if you will, and how the world works. Like, how does creation work? When we start to understand that and we combine that with a trust for our intuition, oh my goodness, like you can do anything. Like when your mom said that you can do anything, it's actually freaking true. Go figure. It's actually true. Whether they even knew the depth of the meaning of that or not, it's true anyways. Kind of like whether you understand the law of attraction or not, it doesn't matter. It's true anyways. And so that's my belief, right? That's my belief. So anyways, that's what I would tell Minnie Clinton. Follow the tingles, baby.
At what point in your life did that sort of crossover happen? It is when you go from sort of people telling you, it's like, anything's possible, and it's sort of, it's water off a duck's back. It just kind of, yeah, good, good, good. But eventually it comes like a tipping point. You talked about a tipping point earlier. It's a tipping point when you suddenly, it's a penny drop. You suddenly go, wow, I get it. I actually get it now. It's not just words. It's actually, I resonate. I feel the vibe, and I was it that point, or was it were you because you seem continually aware anyway all the way through?
Yeah, I know exactly. I know exactly when it was, and I still, even in this story I'm about to share, I still didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was called the law of attraction. I didn't know that I could do anything. I just felt it, and I had this visceral experience. And it wasn't for years later that I actually knew, like, holy cow, that was the law of attraction. So now I watched the movie The Secret. I think it was in 2006 or 7, whenever it came out. But I was in a little Craigslist, which in the US is like an online portal you can sell stuff and you can put like vacation rentals on there. It was before like a lot of the big vacation rentals, before Airbnb. And I found this badass little duplex. I mean, it was tiny, but it was a duplex in Hawaii, the island of Kauai. Beautiful, Nepali coast. Look, so we're literally this little tiny room. It was only like $75 a night, but the view was like $500 a night right down the road. And it was so legit. So picture this, Florida glass ceiling again. This is a sliding glass door out to the lanai, which is like the porch. And literally all it was a bed and a TV and a tiny little kitchen, like a half kitchen and a little bathroom. But that view was $1 million view. You look out and you see the beginnings of the Nepali coast, beautiful lush green and a red hue from some of the rock that was showing. And then like waterfalls coming out from the far in the distance. If you really look hard, beautiful green, center area with a river coming down through it, all the way leading down to Hanalei Bay, which is my favorite place on the planet, Hanalei Bay in Hawaii. And we're watching the show American Idol. Yes, folks, I watch American Idol. I am not afraid to say that and admit it. And the reason is, if you guess after what I've said so far, is I love the way music makes me feel. Music is a certain kind of music. And specifically when the person delivering the music is in the flow. When they're in the flow and they're like just in their gift and they're so like just giving, they're just world class at that moment. They're world class. They're touching so many people's lives because they're moving people emotionally. So anyways, that's why I love it. A lot of American Idol you can keep, or Irish Idol, or wherever country idol you watch, or whatever it's called in your country. But there's those moments that are like magic. And I remember it was, what's his name? He sings, What Do You Want From Me? Do you know who that is? What do you want from me? People listening right now are like, yep, I know who he is, but holy crap, don't quit your day job. If I remember his name, I'll throw it in here in a moment. But anyways, he's a really famous artist today. And he didn't even win that year. But he was singing and he was so in the freaking zone. He was so like, it was absolutely magical. And I'm gonna look it up while we're talking here.
It's Adam Lambert.
Adam Lambert, my friend, yes. And he Googled that. It was the year after he came back. He lost the year before. He came in, I think, second. And he came back, and you'll know it when you see it because he has like green laser lights. That's the one. Watch that. What do you want from me? It is so freaking moving. And it was in that moment that my wife and I started, we're tingle junkies, right? We love that feeling of the tingles. And we're like, wow, this is telling us something. So we started looking at, all right, what are the times in our lives when we've actually felt like we were doing that? Like operating at that level, whether we're in a business or whatever you're doing, could be a hobby you're doing, but what was it? And I identified a couple of experiences, but one in particular, I want to tell you the story of. And ultimately from really talking about this story and how it made us feel like that, we started to dissect and decode what we call success. And this is before I even knew what the law of attraction really was, but I decoded it, and ultimately it really is. It's kind of like the law of attraction, basically what I decoded. So, but it just came through us. And what it was is this. So in grad school, it's 2001, 2002 timeframe. I'm like 27 years old. I went back to school a little bit late because I was working in corporate and doing some other things. I was a recruiter and headhunter and blah, blah, blah. And then I go back to school, and remember I went overseas to Singapore and I got lit up by culture. So I was so lit up. I was not your average student. Like I was actually hungry to learn. Like I was hungry, like Les Brown hungry. And I'm in there and I'm like, literally, if you had international in your title, I was interviewing you. If you had cultural in your title, I was interviewing you. If you had diversity in your title, if you had an accent that didn't sound like it was from the Northeast of the United States, I was interviewing you. And I was so passionate about figuring out, like, what is it that you're doing? Where do you come from? How can I help you? What's your vision? What are you trying to do? What do you do internationally? Like, how can I be a part of it? I was so passionate about that. I went on this tear, Pete. I literally interviewed like 100 people. And I call this the discovery process. I literally wrote a chapter in the book on the law of attraction with a couple of the authors, or a couple of the people, the stars from the movie The Secret, back in like 2007 timeframe, I think, whenever it came out. It was soon after it came out. I wrote a chapter in a book, and it's called The Power of Mentorship. But anyways, I wrote on the discovery process, and this discovery process is what I'm about to share with all of you that literally has the potential to totally rock your world and change your life in a positive way. So pay attention here. If you're not paying attention yet, lock back in. Okay. So I am so like fired up and so inspired in this moment. And I have absolute faith, Pete, that I talked about earlier, that anything's possible. And I believe that I'm like, I can go overseas. I don't know how. I'm like, but I have no money. I have no job. I'm not making any money. I have no money. I have no financial resources saved. I have no contacts or no network resources. I have no reason to believe that it's possible for me to go overseas while I'm in grad school. Zero. In fact, I even had a mentor, holy cow, choose your mentors wisely, who was telling me that he's like, you're crazy. How are you going to combine emotions and psychology and cultural diversity and international business? How are you going to do that? He's like, you should just focus on one thing. Now, he did teach me a lot of good things, so I won't discount everything he said, but that was one thing I was like, I don't believe you. I'm going to stick with my passion and my intuition, right? My intuition. I was like, I don't know how that's all going to work out, but it is. And I don't know how I'm going overseas, but it's happening. So I have this inspiration, massive inspiration, clarity about what it is that I want. I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go, right? Which really fits in the how. But I knew that what I was clear about, and what I advise everybody out there that's listening, is to get inspired and clear about what you want, at least at a high level. I knew I wanted to go overseas. I didn't know where, I didn't know how, I didn't know who, I didn't know where I was going to work or how I was going to make money. I knew none of that. You don't have to know that. Don't fall into the how hole. Do not fall into the how hole, because your brain will beat you up until you succumb and you say, all right, you're right, I can't do that. How could I possibly do that? Look at all these reasons why I can't. Don't ask yourself how. That's not important. The how will reveal itself, right? One of my mentors always used to say, Clinton, figure out the why. Why do you want something? The what and the when. Set a date, right? Why do you want it? What do you want? Why do you want it? And set the date. The who and the how will show up on their own. The who and the how will show up when you're clear about why you want something, what you want, and when you're going to do it. So I knew I was going overseas that summer. I had no clue how. So I was inspired. I had absolute faith that it was possible, and I had belief that it was possible. Like, it was already done, Pete. I was like, it's already done. I don't know how, but it's already happening. I knew nothing about the law of attraction, nothing about personal growth and development. I was heavily immersed in academic development at this point in my life, and passion, as you can tell. And all I did was take action. That was the missing ingredient. All I did was move my feet, move my mouth, and start sharing with my passion with people. And I'd always ask them, this is part of the discovery process. At the end of every single conversation with anybody, I would always ask them, who do you know that I should talk to? I would write that down. Anyone that's listening, who do you know that I should talk to? And you better believe that magic and miracles came out of those conversations. And more opportunities to have the conversation came out of that. Some of them ended up being dead ends, but a lot of them led me to someone new who I could talk to. Before you know it, I'm about 100 interviews deep, and I get introduced to this person that is an alumni from Brazil. She lived in Brazil. She's from Brazil. 3 months later, I find myself literally, zero money, zero even like reason to believe that this was possible, zero resources. 3 months later, I find myself laying in a bed in a bedroom of the Vice Minister of Agriculture, the former Vice Minister of Agriculture of Brazil. Who the hell is going to write, who can write that story? Like, how can you write that story? This woman who went to my school, she was in my major actually, and her dad happened to be the Vice Minister of Agriculture while she was in school, and he just left office when I went down there. So I'm not saying that to like brag, like, ooh, I get to live in this cool mansion. The guy don't get me wrong, he had a piano, grand piano, an elevator, tennis courts, everything. It was badass. But I also lived in somebody who they referred me to, one of their friends. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 adults, 1 child, and I literally slept in the laundry room. Okay. And I also lived in a broke down motel down in the center of Jundiaí, which is the city that I worked in. So I saw the full gamut of that culture, and I wanted to study the cultural adjustment process that people go through when they get sent overseas on an assignment. So I immersed myself in that experience. But that came out of that, those opportunities came out of 3 things that I'm going to underscore at the end, which is the formula I want to have everybody write down and remember. But I come back and I'm like, wow, if I did that once, I can do that again, right? And so I do the same thing. I start interviewing a bunch of people. Now I'm starting to interview companies as well. And before you know it, I'm living and working at the US Embassy in Singapore the next summer. 0 resources, no contacts, boom. All of a sudden, I'm living and working in Singapore, traveling all through Southeast Asia, studying culture. I do the air quotes, studying culture. I was doing some studying. I was also having a great time, right? And so I come back and do the same thing, and I start interviewing more and more companies now. And before you know it, I land my absolute dream job that I had no clue it even existed 3 years prior to that. I literally moved out to California from Massachusetts on the East Coast, moved all the way out to Southern California. And I ended up I was the head of the West Coast accounts for an intercultural services division of the largest relocation company on the planet. It was called Sendent back then. They've broken up into that conglomerate broke into 4 companies now. But anyways, literally I had clients like Amazon, Microsoft, Cisco, all the big dogs on the West Coast that they're doing mergers and acquisitions in Germany, or opening a new plant in China, or sending people overseas to work at that plant, right? We would do all the intercultural services training, all the language training, everything for the CEOs, all the families. And of course they did the relocation. I worked for the intercultural services division, and I was the head of that whole team out on the West Coast. I had no clue that even freaking existed, Pete. And it was all because this is the formula, write this down. I was inspired. So it's inspiration. And I had clarity about what it is that I wanted, at least on a grand scale. I had total inspiration. Like, I'm talking that tingly feeling like I got this, right? And that I got this came from the faith. That's the second part of the formula. Inspiration plus faith and belief. Faith that it's already done, that childlike confidence, that belief that anything's possible. So inspiration plus faith and belief plus action. action equals magic and miracles. All I had to do when I was in that space of faith and belief and inspiration and a clear vision is I just had to move my feet and move my mouth and be in positive action and maintain my high level vibration, my high level mindset that anything's possible. Don't let anyone tell you that it's not possible, right? Don't let anyone tell you it's not possible. It's bull crap. It's not possible for them. It's possible for you as long as you maintain that mindset. That's why it's so important to have a coach, to up-level your beliefs, to up-level your network, to have mentors, everything we've already talked about. It's so important to have that because that's your workability. That's your structure for fulfillment, as one of my coaches calls it. Your structure for fulfillment, that's the structure that keeps you in line. Having those relationships of people that are going to hold you accountable, that are going to keep you with a high vibration mindset. So it's inspiration plus faith and belief plus action equals magic and miracles. And I don't mean Mickey Mouse and abracadabra miracles. I'm talking about those seemingly miraculous events that you could never predict would happen. Never, ever predict that it would happen. I would never predict that I'd be living in Southern California working for my dream job in a company that I didn't know it existed, in a field that I didn't know existed, traveling all around the world. I didn't know this opportunity even existed, and I had no resources to believe it was possible. So, and that of course led me to all these other things that turned into magic with new mentors and new opportunities, becoming an entrepreneur, becoming a speaker, blah, blah, blah. But man, follow that formula. That formula can literally change your life. Most powerful formula I've ever experienced in my life.
I love that. I mean, and it summarizes so well. And but each one of those factors, it can't be it can't be half done. You know, it has to be full on belief, full on faith, and for that, and full on action too. Because otherwise, it's like, yeah, I might do that tomorrow. It's like
that's why your network is so important.
Yeah.
That's why living courageously in a lifestyle, not just a one-time thing, but a lifestyle of continuing self-discovery is so important. That's why finding mentors is so important, because it creates that structure, that sort of buoy structure, if you will, that raises your confidence, that raises your belief, that keeps your mindset on straight, that's positive, that everything's possible, and it keeps you taking action. All you need to do is maintain that and keep taking action. And things that you did not think were possible will start to reveal. Doors of opportunity will begin to open up where there were no doors before.
No, I'm actually getting tingles as you talk about it. It's amazing. It is that sort of just, this continuous action, and people are going to go, "Are you nuts? Take it easy, slow down. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah." But that's when you have that faith, that belief is just kind of just focus and talk about your North Star for some people. It's like, what are you following? Yep. What are you doing? And keep that focus.
Can I speak to that real quick?
Sure,
Pete,
please.
Before you go on. So there's a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, and I'm paraphrasing this, but he says, "Tell everyone what it is that you want, and someone will show up that wants to help you achieve it." So tell everyone what it is that you want, and someone will be there to help you achieve it. That's kind of like the discovery process that I talked about, right? That's part of the process. But there's a caveat. You got to be careful when you're entering into the world of personal growth and development. You can sometimes now there's more and more people that are sort of waking up and becoming more conscious of what's possible for themselves. But there can be some people that aren't quite woken up yet, right? And they're maybe a little pessimistic, or they have a limiting belief of what's possible, or they're just trying to protect you. Remember the physiology, the saber-toothed tiger. They think you're going to run into a saber-toothed tiger, so they're trying to protect you. That's why sometimes you tell someone, "Oh, I want to climb Mount Everest," and they're like, "What are you, crazy? You're going to die." You know how many people die every year from that? It's because they're trying to protect you, right? And sometimes people in our very close circle can be the ones that are the greatest offenders of that. They're not doing it on purpose, right? And sometimes you want to heed their advice. You want to at least take it in, but you got to be careful when you tell everyone what it is that you want. Like I said, you want to be very strategic, right? I found all the people that I thought had anything to do with being international, and I wanted to talk to them because at least we had that in common, right? But even some of them might be like, well, I don't know if you should do that. Well, that's okay. Thank you for sharing. Have a nice day. Go talk to somebody else. Just what I'm alluding to is, although I 1000% believe in that statement by Ralph Waldo Emerson to share what it is that you want with everybody, because someone will show up that wants to help you achieve it. Although I 100% believe in that, I also want you to know that you need to have a thick skin. You need to have firm belief. And if you picture and imagine a table right now where, like, let's say 2 legs of that table are really sturdy, like you really believe it, you have faith, you have belief, you have confidence, you have a network, right? But you don't have that third leg, at least 3 legs. Just know that someone's going to come and just say one thing and boop, and you're tipped over. So you don't even want to only have 3 legs. You don't even want to have 4 legs. You want to build like 1,000 legs under your stool, so that no matter what anybody says to you, it doesn't matter. You could put an elephant on that stool and it's not going to break. It's not going to tip over. Anybody can say anything to you and you're like, you know what? Thank you for sharing. I know that I can do it. I know it's possible. I know that what Clinton and Pete are talking about is true. All I need to do is stay inspired. So keep myself surrounded by amazing people that keep my beliefs up, keep reading great books and listening to great podcasts like Fire in the Belly, and keep up leveling my own limiting beliefs and discovering what they are, listen to my language, up level my network, find mentors and coaches that I can model. And all I need to do is have faith and belief that what I want is possible, and then just take action. Move your feet and move your mouth, keep talking to people and keep taking action and keep moving forward. And magic and miracles will open up for you.
And it ties back so nicely in terms of, being clear on your vision and, your values, so that, in the worlds of NLP, you're stacking, it's your new belief.
Yes.
You set your foundation, you stack one after the other. It's your value. Why are you doing it? It's repetitive action, it's moving towards a goal, really sort of pushing and pushing and pushing. It's so strong. I mean, in terms of that, and I love your clarity in it. And I mean, does that just come through time? And is that, where does this level of clarity come for you?
This is my vision, man. This is my purpose. My purpose is to reignite the human spirit. So I had to go through hell and back in my life. Everything I've shared that has sounded, I don't want to say negative, but that has sounded like unevolved or challenged state of being that people out there in the world experience, I've had all those same experiences. So I'm not saying anything that I haven't experienced. And, to bring it back to that call center, that sobering day when I'm walking into this call center, I realized, during that time that I, again, always trusted my intuition, Pete. I don't think I shared the story yet about how reigniting the human spirit came to be. Can I share that? Because I think that's going to shed some light on what you're saying.
Please.
So 2008, 2009, we all know what happened around the world. The financial collapse definitely impacted where I was in the US. I'm sure it impacted wherever you are in the world on some level. And I literally, went from making a great amount of money and having a great amount of self-fulfillment and making a big difference in people's lives, which is just as important to me, if not more, probably more important now in my life than even making money. Back when I was younger, I wanted to make money, but I still want to make an impact. Now I want to make more of an impact, and I like making money too. Why not? Right. But my business literally crumbled in like a few months, like 3 months. Business crumbled. I lost my business. Right. So I lose my business. I lose my credit. I lose my property. This is 8 months after I get married, Pete. Welcome to the team, honey, right? Welcome to the team. And my confidence is shattered in that moment. And some of you might be able to relate to that on some level, or maybe you had something else happen to you at a different time in your life. It could be a financial loss, like I said, or business loss. It could be a familial loss or relationship, divorce, loss of parent or child or a friend. It could be just a failure in something you perceive as a failure. Well, for me, that's what it was. That was this sort of pivotal moment. Remember how I said everything's always perfect, right? Well, I firmly believe that everything is always perfect. Now, did it seem like it was perfect in that moment? No. What's the answer in Spanish? No. It did not seem perfect in that experience. But I look back at it now and it's exactly what had to happen to me. It's the perfect scenario. And it wasn't like I came out of that in a year. Like that was like a 7 to 10 year challenge for me. It was a struggle. So I'm here, I'm in this call center. You know, I won't tell the full story there unless you want to later, but basically I'm in a seminar. Fast forward a few months, I'm in a seminar, and I'm, like I said, I'm shattered, man. My confidence is totally shattered. I didn't know what to do. I was lost. I was confused. My whole model of the world seemed broken. Right. And remember how I said I'd always been someone that followed my intuition. Okay. So remember that. I'm going to give you a little cliffhanger. I'll come back to that in a sec. Always been someone who followed my intuition. So I'm at this seminar, and I'm certainly not leading the seminar, right? Certainly not leading it. I'm in this seminar and I'm lost, and I'm at the microphone. So picture this, 200 people all around me. I'm at the microphone, and the leader, the seminar leader, his name's Chris. He looks right at me. He's like, Clinton, you're dead inside, in front of the whole room. And I'm just like, ugh, it was like a stake to the heart, right? But he spoke directly to my soul. Like he was spot on, Pete. I was dead inside. And it was like this flash in my head that happened there. And then a walk a few days later, one of my black sheep habits, I call them, is taking walks in nature, solo walks by yourself, to be able to contemplate, right? It's a great thing to do after you meditate, to contemplate, right? Let those thoughts bubble up, right? Still your mind first with meditation, and then take a walk and let those thoughts bubble up, and then come back and journal. It's another black sheep habit. It's a great 1, 2, 3 punch to quiet your mind and let your mind bubble up and get clarity with the contemplation, and then come back and journal, because those thoughts are slippery and you'll lose them. So write them down. Okay. So I'm in this seminar, like I said, and this flash happens, and I'm like, wow, I know why my confidence is shattered. I'd always been someone who trusted my intuition. How could my intuition's always been there. It's never failed me. It's always guided me. How could my intuition fail me? How could my intuition not tell me, Clinton, don't buy those properties? And that's when I got in that moment, like, wow, that's why my confidence is shattered. But I didn't get the second part until I took the walk in nature. So I take the walk in nature a few days later, a week later, and I realize, holy shnikes, it wasn't my intuition that failed me. It was me that failed my intuition. I remembered on that walk, my intuition saying, Clinton, don't buy those properties. Clinton, these properties are not the right way to go. These people that you're working with are not up and up people. You're doing this for the wrong reasons. You can do it a different way. I remember all these things. I'm like, where was that? Holy cow, buried in my subconscious mind. I just buried it away because for whatever reason at the time, I wanted something else. And, I didn't pay attention to it. And the reason why my confidence was shattered is not because my intuition failed me, but it's because I failed my intuition, and my intuition was my entire construct of the world. That's how I operated in my world, in my life. And it was broken. So I didn't have a system to be able to rely on, going back to and trusting. And I had zero trust. Even when I had a little flicker of inspiration, like, I can't trust that. I didn't say I can't trust that, but there's no way I could trust that. Because how could I? It failed me, right? So holy crap, that was the day that I realized, like everything in my speaking, in my speaker coaching, and in my speaking, keynote speaking around the world, it's all fire related. For whatever reason, I'm not a fireman. I don't know. I'm not a pyro. It's just fire, reigniting. And the reason why it's reigniting and not igniting, so many people are like, just call it igniting. I'm like, bullshit. It's not igniting. It's reigniting. Because when we're little kids and we have that little kid confidence, Pete, we're already freaking ignited. And then some shit happens in our life and we make it mean something. And it doesn't mean that. And now we don't have that confidence. Our light goes out. You ever see a kid go from full self-expression to all of a sudden they're like shy and they're like looking down and something happened. And they made it mean something. That's all that happened. Something happened. And it could have been something really simple. They made it mean something. Boom. They're not self-expressed anymore. Right? They're not So my light had gone out, or it was at least flickering. It was not a full flame, and I needed to reignite my human spirit. Not ignite it. It was already ignited. It just kind of went out because of whatever happened. I had to reignite it. And it was a 7 to 10 year journey after that. It was a spiritual awakening process, deep immersion in my own personal growth and development, and also spiritual growth and development, and hiring coaches and mentors as well in areas that were like niche areas, like speaking, for example. I've hired some of the best speakers on the planet to be my coaches, paid them thousands and thousands of dollars because that's important to me, right? And it became more and more important to me the more I started doing things that I loved. Remember, do the things that you love. I started getting on more and more stages. I didn't plan on being a professional speaker. I just gravitated towards that stuff naturally. In the job that I had, I was like, I want to speak more. Coach, put me in. I got my suit on, right? So all of a sudden I'm on stages more and more and more. And all of a sudden I'm developing this level of mastery. And then I start to develop a passion for it. Remember how I talked about do the things you like, they turn into passions sometimes. And that's when, in a moment, another contemplation moment, I realized, holy crap, that's my purpose. Not to reignite my human spirit. I literally remember writing in my journal about 7 years ago, I'm going through this shit and it's so painful so that I can help other people, so that I'm fully equipped to help other people go through this as well, right? It's perfect. It was perfect. And it would have been a shame if I allowed any of that fear that's going to be there to show up as danger. It would have been a shame, because then I wouldn't have taken the actions. Instead, I found ways to transmute that fear into excitement and into knowing, just this knowingness that that's where the magic happens, in that fear space, where you have this knowingness that you feel it's the right thing to do, but it scares the shit out of you, but you do it anyways, because you start to understand how personal growth works. This is just how the world works, folks. Whether you know it or not, this is how it works, right? Is my belief of how it works anyways. And it's my experience of how it definitely works for me and the people I work with. That the magic happens in that fear zone, right? Where it's like you have this knowingness that it's possible with this massive unknowingness of how you're actually going to pull it off, right? And you just take that action, and that's where your life truly, that's where you become alive. Right? That's where you become alive.
Unreal. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
And it is, as we talked about earlier, it's kind of the great overwhelm comes great change, and it is, as you say at the time, it's hard, really hard when you see that and all that, but actually you go to, I don't know. I mean, that sounded like a pretty dark place for you that you went to.
It was an extremely dark place for me, but I had to go there to know my purpose of reigniting the human spirit in others and enabling that courage and confidence in people where they need to overcome that failure or perhaps the fear and the doubt. And that's what I'm passionate about. It's my healthy obsession, is enabling the courage and confidence to overcome the failure, fear, and doubt, to actually live your dream life now, or to express your unique message to the world as an aspiring speaker. I had to go to that dark place, or there's no way I could have actually been the kind of coach and speaker that I am today. It wouldn't have happened.
It's almost like when people they talk about a near-death experience, and it's almost that darkness. It's the same. It comes across as the same place, where it's like all bets are off, all strings to the past, all limitations, all beliefs, everything is just smashed to bits, and there's a light. There's something. I love that. For obvious reasons, I love the reignite. I love that. That thing of just going clear page, start fresh.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful way to be, and to get to that. So talk to us about the rebuilding process.
So the rebuilding process is definitely, it took me perhaps longer than it would take you. I resisted my own greatness, and It's funny. I have found that sometimes we teach what we need to learn the most.
Your
I
voids are your
find that we
values.
teach what we need to learn the most. Yeah. So my greatest challenge in life and my greatest odyssey, if you will, or quest or triumph is becoming my greatest self. And I feel like a lot of people, that's what a lot of people want. They want to become their best self. A lot of your listeners probably listen because they want to become their best self, the best version of themselves. Well, that's been a challenge for me because just like you, I have limiting beliefs as well. And they're right around like, how big can I really be? And it's not about me being big. I'm not trying to be this big guy, international speaker, blah, blah, blah. Right. I mean about impact. It's like, I was like, Clinton, really, can you really impact 1,000 speakers and help them launch their businesses? Like, I still have those limiting beliefs and I do this shit. I even talk about it. I do this stuff. Excuse my language for anybody that does not swear out there. So the rebuilding process it's like building blocks. And a lot of the stuff that I've already shared is what I did, right? It's really going internal. Anytime I've ever had a block, one of the things Justin always shares with me is go internal. What I mean by that is work on yourself. Work on that left leg that I talked about earlier, that inner game, and move that game forward. Don't just go out there and take a bunch of action. Move your inner game forward, whether that means no movement at all, like meditating, or maybe if you're into prayer, you can do that too. Like I said, meditation, followed by contemplation with walks in nature, followed by journaling. That's a great 1, 2, 3 punch. Once you get really clear now, after you've journaled for a while, a great 4th punch is now you visualize what you actually want. Visualize it in a way that you already have it. Like it's already done. I want to share a story about Michael Phelps. Think of him what you want. He's pretty much the most badass Olympian of all time. The numbers don't lie, right? I think he has 27 gold medals. I could be off by 1 or 2. No, 27 medals. I think 18 of them are gold medals. I believe it's something like that. Those numbers might be a little off, but I haven't shared this story in a while. And he literally, before an Olympics, he would work out 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's pretty much, by the way, every day, 8 hours a day. Okay. For 4 years leading up to an Olympics. That's a lot of working out, isn't it, Pete? I can see your head nodding. It is. So he says that even with all of that work and effort and working out, he says visualization is his secret weapon. More important than any of that working out. Now, could he just visualize and get the same results? No. Could he have just worked out and got the same results? No. But he said that visualization was his secret weapon. If you don't know what I'm talking about out there, all I mean by visualization is get really clear about what you want and actually visualize it in your brain and use like vibrant colors, sounds, smells, everything. In fact, smell is the most recognizable sense of any of your senses, which was interesting. I learned that recently. So picture this, Michael Phelps before, like every day, he would literally spend time closing his eyes, and you can do this probably sitting down, right, or laying down, and he would literally visualize himself in the pool at the Olympics. And he'd visualize himself literally smelling the smell of the chlorine in the room, visualizing himself standing on the blocks. He'll visualize and hear the sound of the horn going off, and then he'll visualize him jumping in right off the blocks, every single stroke, every single kick, every single turn, all the way through to the final lunge to the finish line. And he'll visualize himself being the first one to touch that line. And then he'll visualize himself hearing his name over the loudspeaker, and he'll hear it, and he'll feel himself standing on the podium and receiving the gold medal being placed around his neck. He visualized that every single day. But not only would he visualize that, he would feel the feeling that he's going to feel when he receives that gold medal. And he feels it right now, every single time he visualized. The feeling is like the magical elixir of this whole process. Now we're kind of touching a little bit on law of attraction. It goes a lot deeper than that, and it's a lot of effort. I'm not talking about the woo-woo law of attraction you might have heard of, where you just think of something and it happens. That's part of it, actually, but that's certainly not the whole story. You got to take action, right? It's the formula that I gave you earlier. So would it have worked if you didn't take the action? Absolutely not. Would he have gotten all those gold medals without the visualization? I think not as well. In fact, he shares in a Forbes interview, you can find this online if you Google it. He shares that on one of the previous Olympics, where he literally, in a 200-meter butterfly, and I'm not a swimmer, so I could be using the wrong terms here, but a 200-meter butterfly, about an eighth of the way through that entire match, that entire meet, his goggles filled up with chlorine water. He couldn't see a thing. He swam more than 3/4 of that entire race completely blind. He won gold medal, and he set a world record in the butterfly. And he attributes it to his hours and hours and hours over those 4 years of actually visualizing himself. Now, folks, if nothing else, there is an element of law of attraction here. We're not going to get into that. But if nothing else, if you just think about it psychologically and repetition-wise, our brains don't know the difference between doing something live, like actually swimming, or visualizing it in our brains. They don't know the difference between you speaking on stage live or actually doing it in your mind's eye, visualizing it. The same areas of your brain light up. The same synapses fire. The same chemicals get released. It's the same exact thing. And if you think about it like the way patterns are formed and the way beliefs are continuously formed and reinforced in our brain, it's like an elephant walking through tall grass. The more they walk through that tall grass, all of a sudden that trail is set. Well, that's what happens when we're little kids. When those traumatic events happen, we collect evidence to prove that it's true, to feel safe in that new construct of the world. Elephant trails, elephant trails, elephant trails. They're in our brains. That's why limiting beliefs are sometimes hard to disengage from. But you can do it. The first step is becoming aware. But coming back to visualization, you're doing the same thing when you're visualizing. You're creating what are called neural pathways in your brain. And these neural pathways are these elephant trails. It's a new pathway of success, of winning, of doing all the right motions. So if nothing else, you're just preparing your brain for success. If you don't even believe in law of attraction and how you actually begin to magnetize opportunities towards you when you visualize, because that's also true, by the way. If you don't believe me, it's actually been proven in quantum physics, right? It's been proven. But if you don't believe that, or you don't want to go there yet, or you're not ready for that conversation, that's fine. Just know that you're prepping your brain for success. Because by the time you race that race, or speak on that stage, or whatever's important to you in your life, your brain has already done it thousands of times. And you've won every single time. So that's some of the things that I did along my path to dig myself out, to reignite my human spirit. I started to really at a deepened self-awareness and a respect for the power of a spiritual awakening and I'm not saying like this crazy thing happened to me spiritually. No, I just got more interested in being present and how I was connected to source and guided by something bigger than me. That's all I mean by that. And I got really committed to growing from a personal development standpoint as opposed to an academic development. Academic development's more like planting a garden. Most of our lives, we spend planting a garden, adding things to our brain. Whereas personal development, I find, is more like weeding a garden and making sure that garden is actually going to grow the right things, taking things out of the garden that maybe you didn't need, your dislikes, or, I'm not good at that. Let's not focus on that. Let's nurture the things I'm really great at. Let's nurture my flow. Let's discover my strengths and weaknesses. That's gardening. To use a gardening analogy out for anyone out there that's a gardener, it's more like weeding. It's taking things out. That's how you gain wisdom through personal growth versus academic development. It's great, but you're adding a bunch of stuff. It's great. You can do both, right? You can do both. But ultimately, I did all that to dig myself and reignite my human spirit, to answer your question more succinctly. And I also surrounded myself with amazing people that were on the same mission that I wanted to be on, right? Surround yourself with the people on the same mission as you. Surrounded myself with mentors. I hired coaches that are being the kind of person I want to become, having the kind of results I want to have, doing the kind of things, living the kind of lifestyle, making the kind of impact. And I modeled them. All the things we've talked about. This is what I did. And I practiced the black sheep habits, right? I meditated. I quieted my mind. I got still. I went out in nature and contemplated and let things bubble up. And then I journaled them down. And then I visualized them as if they're already done. And opportunity after opportunity after opportunity has come up. And it was not all at once. And it's not like I'm not still in the journey. I don't have it all figured out. I'm still in the process of becoming my best self. But those are some of the things that I did to help create momentum, create opportunity, and keep me in a state of being empowered and ignited. And keep that fire in the belly, right, Pete?
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. I love that you've and again, you're sort of honest and raw, and I, what I'm taking away there is a lot of, it's going backwards to go forward sometimes. It is strip it back to basics, but build your tools, build your toolkit. That stuff's going to change. We're not, we're humans. There's going to be other stuff. There's going to be other limiting beliefs. I mean, it's not like a congratulations, you win the prize and that's you done and dusted with limiting beliefs. It's a continual process, right?
Absolutely continuing process, Pete. In fact, you know what? If you want an easy life that is probably not that fulfilled, and I might turn off some people here, but I'm going to say it anyways, right? If you want kind of an easy life and like something where it's ultimately not easy, but you think it's easy, you just keep your head in the sand and just kind of go through the motions and take whatever life gives you, and do whatever job or business that you're in right now, because that's the way it is, right? But if you really want to live a fulfilled life with waking up with a fire in your belly and in your heart and in your soul and you're excited, it's not easier. I'm not here to say it's easier. It's not. It's easier to be naive and just kind of go through life. And I'm not trying to diss anyone on here that maybe isn't woken up yet. I think everyone that's listening to this probably is woken up. If they're not, they are by now after listening to this bad boy. But it's not easier, but it's so much more fulfilling, right? It's kind of like the movie The Matrix. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. There's so many levels of depth of that movie, man. Whew, watch that movie again after having this conversation we had today. There's a lot of meaning in that movie, right? So many people are just asleep, right? They're sleepwalking through life. They're just kind of taking it. And it's not easy to be Neo. It's not easy to be Morpheus. It's not easy to be Trinity or anyone else, Tractor, whatever the heck his name is, right? Oh, they had a harder life. The guys walking around in suits in the fake life, they had it easy. But man, were they fulfilled. They were living for something bigger than themselves. And they were becoming the best version of themselves. And they were enjoying life, like consciously, and being able to make an impact and a difference for others as well. But man, it's a growth process, and it's not one and done. Like, it is a commitment. Once you woke up, like, you're awake, you can never see life again the same way, but that's a good thing. That is a good thing. Because now and only now have you reignited your human spirit, and now you're able to actually live into your purpose and have your purpose be revealed to you, and be that, well, like I said, what everybody's purpose, be in service to others inside of your greatest gift.
And it's great. I mean, the likes of the Matrix, I mean, I see Agent Smith as that's your limiting beliefs. They hunt you down. It's like, they want to stop you. They're kind of mean, kind of well, but It's all the, yeah, we just want you to be safe, and don't push out of the norm too much, and that's what I see anyway with the Matrix. And
Love it.
it's awesome, when you see it that
Love
way.
it. Yeah, you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable,
Mm,
because being uncomfortable is where the magic happens. I
mm,
know I keep saying stuff like that, but it's true. You have to learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And it doesn't mean you're going to go through your whole life being uncomfortable. I mean that in order to continue to expand, which our souls are designed to expand, to continue to expand. So when we're not expanding, that's the cause, in my opinion. That is one of the major causes of depression and of suicide in the world, is that we're not allowing ourselves to expand. There's some limiting belief, and I'm not taking this conversation lightly at all. I know there's other things sometimes involved. Sometimes there's uh, abnormal type psychological things that are happening, or sicknesses, et cetera, illnesses. But ultimately, I know a lot of people listening have experienced challenges. And I just want you to know that, you know, I've been there. Pete's probably been there. I'm sure I haven't heard your full story yet, but I know that you can get out of it. I know that you can emerge from the other side, but don't shut down. You got to expand and open up and step into it powerfully and courageously, and get comfortable with being a little bit uncomfortable, even with your own beliefs. Get comfortable with knowing that you can do anything. That might make you feel uncomfortable. Get comfortable with knowing that you can be that speaker that speaks on stages all around the world, or you can be that entrepreneur, or you can be that leader or CEO of a company. You can overcome that failure. You just have to surround yourself with great people and great information and feed your mind, right? We're products of the books we read and the people we hang out with. So you want to change things, change what goes into your brain and into your hearts.
you can't unknow what you know, right?
Yeah. And it's good. It's
Yeah.
good some people say, well, my life's a mess. Well, when I talk to my aspiring speakers, I'm like, your mess is your message.
Mm,
That's the thing that's the most powerful, is exactly what I shared. The crap I went through it for a reason.
mm.
It didn't just happen randomly. It was perfectly designed for me to be able to become the kind of person I need to become to live my purpose.
Is there any particular points that really stand out for you where, and I sometimes cautious to use the word proud or pride, but is there certain times that you've actually sort of just stood back and given yourself a pat on the back and say, Clinton, I'm proud of you?
I'm going to do it right now because I don't do that enough. I don't know that I do that enough. I'm probably my greatest critic, especially as a speaker. Um, so yeah, I mean, has there been a moment? I'd say I was really, really proud that second time I was on stage, when I shared earlier with Justin, when I felt like I could cut the emotion with a knife. That it was palpable, the connection I had with that audience. And I don't know if pride is the right word, but I was very happy that I was doing what I was doing, and I felt meaningful. I felt purposeful. I felt like, wow, this is freaking cool, man. I can connect with people on this level and make an impact. So I would say that would be one moment when we're thinking about speaking. I mean, the first time I spoke internationally, I actually spoke in Ireland. I think I shared with you earlier, in Sligo. I've spoken several other places in around the world as well. But the first time I spoke in England was my first international gig. That was a really proud moment of mine. The first time I hit a certain income bracket of not bracket, but per speech, getting to a certain level of some of the top speakers out there. I really felt really proud. But the most meaningful moment and prideful moment is when it happens, usually every time I speak, and not always to this dramatic level. Certainly this dramatic level doesn't happen every time I speak, but when somebody comes up to me and says, and they're crying and they're like, this one guy, I spoke one time and I found out later he was suicidal. and he was in the audience, and he came up to me and he's like, I didn't know why I moved out here from Michigan. I didn't know why I took this job. But he's like, I know now. I know why now. It was to hear your speech today, to reignite my human spirit, to know that I am good enough, to know that I can live for something bigger. And it doesn't have to be conquering the world. You don't have to be an international speaker. You could just be wanting to be a great dad, right? Your purpose could be being a great father or mother. Your purpose can be being a great entrepreneur or being a great leader in your community. It doesn't have to be something, mine sounds really sexy. It's not. It's just, it is what it is. That was what was led to me. That's what I was led to, right? It doesn't mean it's any better than anyone else's. It just means that it's my purpose, right? So the most prideful moment is when either somebody says something like that leads them away from harming themselves, or that really just, that leads them to their purpose, that says, wow, I finally see what's possible for my life. That is the most proud moments that I ever have as a speaker and a speaker coach.
Do you think in some ways, not, and even just picking up on the energy you shifted there, when you talk about that sort of room of 100 people, that sort of big thing, do you think you were talking to you as well, your inner self?
When?
At, when you were saying, when you were speaking, and you felt that emotional connection with that room of 100 odd people, and that level, it sounds almost like a healing or a sort of alignment moment, if that's the right.
Yeah. Pete, you're right on. It absolutely was. And, as I was sharing before about follow the tingles, right? We all have this warm, tingly feeling. Well, it's my belief that that's why we exist as what I would call spiritual beings living this very human experience, not the other way around. We are spiritual beings, in my opinion. It's my belief, living this very human experience. It's our right and it's our gift to feel that feeling and to give that feeling to other people. And I think in that moment where I could cut that emotion in the room with a knife, I was acknowledged. Like, holy cow. First of all, that is my healthy obsession, to feel that feeling and to give that to other people as a speaker. And that was my first real experience of like achieving that. And it was powerful. It was very, very powerful. And giving myself the acknowledgement of, wow, you're in the right path. You're going in the right path.
It's so, I mean, the journey, and I have so many notes here. I mean, I shared with you at the start of a blank page. I'm literally doubling the pages here, and
Nice.
there's so much, really. There's so much, and it's great to see, and you can tell with the energy that you give off is so clean in terms of the clarity, the alignment, the purpose, the intention, the values, and really what you talked about, vision, mission. There's so many things there that comes across anyway. I mean, you mentioned a bit there about sort of your inner voice, your inner critic. I mean, do you get that, or is it are you clear?
Could you restate the question? I didn't fully get the
Sure.
question.
Just in terms of your inner dialogue now, because certainly coming across in terms of your clarity. But
Yep.
My question, I suppose, is more on the inner, the inner dialogue, and the voice that you talk to yourself with.
Great. I get it now. So thank you for restating that. So I'm a firm believer in, and I'm certified in this personality profile, that I just have a lot of distinction around flow. It's a profile that shows you, how do you find your flow? What is it in your life or your career that when you do it, it gives you life and gives you energy? And I say all that to say, just to give a little credibility of what I'm about to share, I get clarity and power and confidence when I'm in my flow. And if we look at my business, I get that when I'm actually speaking. So right now we're speaking. If you told me to write all this down on a piece of paper, the last 3 hours or however long we've been talking, I would probably not be as powerful at all. In fact, I know I wouldn't. I might be able to get there, but it would take me a while. And it's just because it's a different function, right? It's like if you ask me to go and build out a system for my business to reach more people, reach more aspiring speakers, when I start doing too much of that in my business, I start to doubt that I'm the right person for this because I'm not in my flow doing that role. But when I start doing and having conversations like this, I feel like anything's possible. When I'm not in my flow in my business, when I'm operating in outside of my flow, that's where the questions start to come in because I'm not in my flow. When I'm in my flow, there's no time for me to even think about it. I'm just so inspired and fired up and hopefully adding a ton of value that I can just see the vision and it all just rolls out of me super clear. That's why it's so vital to really discover who you are and what makes you tick and what's your personality and what's the thing that puts you in your flow, because when you're in your flow, you find clarity. It's kind of like water. If you have a cloudy water, like a stream that's really muddy, letting that water sit there, right, with like maybe a slow agitation does not make it more clear. But when you flow water through it and take a lot of action and let that water flow through it, it actually filtrates, right? And it becomes more and more clear. So I say that discover what lights you up and what gets you in your flow, be in action around that, because with that action comes clarity. With that action comes those seemingly miraculous doors of opportunity that open up. And you just then have to have the courage to say yes. Like one of the things I always say, Pete, is think big, say yes, and take action. That's a 6-word story right there that exemplifies almost my entire talk today. Think big, say yes, and take action. Because when you do that, man, I keep saying it, but that's where life happens, man. That's where you truly get fulfilled.
Would you describe that as your mantra? Is that your...
That's like my sign off. Maybe it is my mantra. That's if you were to ask me, hey, what are your final thoughts? I'm probably going to say that again because it's that important. I might say something else that's on the top of my head, but maybe it is my mantra because I say it a lot. And it truly, like, I didn't even know. This is why the power of being in action as well, especially as a speaker, but really anybody, and sharing what it is that you're up to. I did another one of these talks a while back, and somebody actually told me, it was for a bunch of speakers, and they said, wow, what you said at the end is like a 6-word story. Like, I didn't know that. They told me that. And I was like, holy crap, they're right. And it does totally exemplify everything that I stand for, or most of what I stand for. So like, be out there and share, because you continually learn more and more. And I guess now it is my mantra: think big, say yes, and take action, baby. Because, man, when you do that, you're setting yourself up for a recipe for a great life, fulfilling life. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be rewarding. And there will be a sense of ease in it because you get in your flow.
That was a flow. That was awesome.
Nice. See, and you just brought that out of me. You've brought a lot out of me today. So thank you, Pete.
It's awesome. I do want to know what your animal is. You talked about way back at the start, saying you get out into nature and you think in animals almost, what is your go-to animal?
So wait a minute. I said I think in animals. Tell me more. What did I say?
You were talking about, I can't remember the exact wording and below, but you mentioned animals in terms of, it was getting out into nature. But I'm kind of wondering what animal you would resonate with if you were to be an animal.
Okay, so I don't remember actually saying that, but we've been on for a little while, so I might have said it and I don't remember. But I will answer the question anyways. I have 2 what I would call spirit animals. I don't even really know that much about spirit animals, but Google it. There's actually such a thing. So I would say a hawk is, and they are like really cool animals. And I'm not just choosing the cool animals, guys and gals. It's
not
just
like the triangle.
It's just what I resonate. It's what I resonate with. Like I just, some people resonate with turtles, and it's for a great reason. I just don't. So hawks, for whatever reason, and again, this is intuition. Pay attention, be present, be conscious. Because when something happens and I have a thought, it just so happens there's a lot of hawks around where I live. I'm backed up against a big canyon here in San Diego, California. And I'll be on a walk and literally, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? There was something I was thinking. It was important at the time. I don't remember what it was, but all of a sudden this hawk, and it's never been this like specific. And I think it was about me deciding that I was going to really grow my coaching business for aspiring speakers. That's what it was. Mm. And this hawk, my wife and I and her mom were walking around the park, and this hawk literally came. We were following it for a while. We're like, oh, here it is, cool. Because I just love watching them. They're beautiful, majestic animals. And all of a sudden we're having this conversation about this, and I kind of forgot about the hawk. He jumps off of the post, because there's these big light posts, pretty high up, probably like 200 feet up. Like it's big, tall post. And he didn't dive bomb me, but he came towards us and he let out the most magnificent and loud hawk screech that I've ever heard in my life. And I just got the chills again right now. And I got the chills in the moment, and I was like, oh, okay, looks like I'm doing that. That is your intuition. I'm telling you, that is something telling you that you're going in the right direction, or maybe you're not, right? Whatever you feel in the moment, you might feel, wow, I'm going in the wrong direction. That's what it is then. Whatever you feel, it is. Don't second guess it. Trust it. Trust your intuition. So hawk for sure. And then lions, man. My mom has always called me a quiet lion, because although I do speak and I am a speaker, if you get to know me, I'm not usually, I used to be the class clown. I'm not really that anymore. Once in a while, if you put a couple pops in me, a couple drinks in me, and maybe I'll be a little louder and funnier, but I'm pretty quiet. Like I'm a pretty introverted extrovert, and I kind of just chill. And then when I say something, it's usually important or powerful. At least I try to be. I don't try to be, but that's what I hope is happening. So my mom's always called me kind of a quiet lion. And there's just something about lions. I've been on a few trips to South Africa, and they're just so freaking majestic. There's that word again, something about majestic. I also love horses. Love horses. That was my favorite animal as a kid. But lions, man, if you go to I invited you to my speaker posse. It's a free Facebook group. If you're an aspiring speaker, you can just go to speakerposse.com and it leads you right to Facebook. It's totally free. I don't sell anything, and it's a free Facebook group. But the speaker posse, the picture of that I said was a bunch of lions, and they're so fierce looking, man. And they're just like, but they're peaceful. And I have written on my board right here, who do I need to become to make the impact I want to make? And I would challenge all of you to write that question down for yourself. When you get clear about your vision, it's not about what you need to do. It's really not. That's the booby prize. It's who do you need to become? And there's a difference. Who do you need to become to actually make the kind of impact that you want to make, or to make the kind of money that you want to make, or to have the kind of position you want, or business that you want to have? It's who do you need to become? That's what you need to be asking yourself. And I wrote on my board, I need to become the peaceful warrior. And that's an illustration of the quiet lion. I need to become peaceful warrior. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've noticed in the last half hour of us talking, I've dropped more into my heart. And you said this would happen in different words. And I've spoken more from a grounded, centered place. And this is where I need to speak from all the time, with periods of excitement. Doesn't mean I can't be excited, but it's more of a grounded energy. And if anybody's watched this whole thing, God bless you if you have, because it's been a long one. I'm having fun though. Hopefully you are. You've noticed it as well. And this is the place from which I can be the peaceful warrior. And that's what those are the animals that I most resonate with.
And that really stands, and that's why, people talk about the gap between who you are, who you truly are and who you are today. And when that gap collapses, you get silence, you get alignment, you get ease, you get all the things that you've pulled through in this in a beautiful way. And that moment of silence is just, I am. It is the absolute certainty. In the background, I've actually pulled up your, the picture you talk about on the group, and it's a pride of lions, but it's stealth walk. It's that sort of
powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just one of those things of going, okay, Wow. I love that, the quiet warrior. I think it just, the picture it brings up is so, so strong, so it's
Nice.
awesome. What's your guilty pleasure? What do you do for downtime?
Guilty pleasure, or what do I like to do?
Well, give us your
Because
guilty pleasure first,
guilty
or
pleasure sounds guilty.
well,
What do
take
I
out
do? Okay.
just pleasure. What?
Okay. So I'll give you both. Guilty pleasure. Like I said, I watch American Idol.
Hmm.
Is it food for my soul? It actually is food for my soul, because anytime I can get moved, touched, or inspired and
Hmm.
get that tingly feeling, that raises your vibration, by the way. That's one of the power tools of flow that I call in the Black Sheep Habits, is listening to powerful music and inspiring movies or video clips. Because anytime you can create that experience of feeling the tingles from something outside of you, it raises your vibration. And if you don't know much about vibration, just trust me, it does. And that allows you to attract more of what it is that you want, and be in more of an empowering state. Tony Robbins talks a lot about being in an empowered state. Well, you can shift your state. If any of you out there are ever depressed, I have this card literally on my desk right here, and it's called the Triad. You're not going to be able to see it, but, well, maybe you will, but it's called the Triad. Yeah, it's too small. And it's from Tony Robbins. He says, if you ever want to change the way you feel, or change what you feel and the meaning you assign to it, understanding these three forces will help you take control of your emotions and propel your life forward. And it's these three things. If you're ever feeling like you are depressed or disempowered, start listening to your language. We agree on that one. He doesn't say it that way, but he says your language, folks, your language creates your destiny. Your language creates your existence. It creates your present. It creates your future. And a lot of times it can create your past as well. All right. You literally you believe what it is that you say, even if it's not what happened in your past. That's what I mean by that, the last statement. Okay. So change your language, change your focus. Number two, what it is that you're focusing on at any given moment. Because all limiting belief is a thought that you keep focusing on over and over and over and over and over. And a lot of times you don't even think you are, because it's so ingrained in your brain. So just shift your focus. Start focusing on something else, right? And number three, the most powerful one, in my opinion, that's the fastest, is your physiology. Shift your physiology. What does he mean by that? Well, what he normally is talking about, from my experience, is exercise. So true. You ever get down in the dumps, start exercising. Don't worry about this big regimen. Just go for a run. Put on sneakers and go for a run. And you tell me you don't feel different when you come back. You tell me you don't feel different. You might not be like depressed all the way to joy. You're not going to jump to that level on the level of consciousness, but you're probably going to go from joy to maybe like, from depression to maybe like anger, which is better than depression. You're one level up. I'm talking a little bit of the consciousness scale with Esther Hicks, and David Hawkins is another amazing author as well that talks about this. But ultimately, shifting your physiology is one of the most powerful and easiest things you can do right away to shift how you feel, right? And another way to shift your physiology is to watch. This is my power tools of flow, because I'm all about emotion. Watch something that inspires you, either a movie or a quick video clip of Les Brown on video or whatever, or like he's an amazing speaker. Another speaker I got the opportunity to speak on stage with is Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher. He's one of the best speakers on the planet, motivational speakers. If you don't know who he is, Google him. He's amazing. So listen to people like that, things that inspire you, or listen to music that lights you up, that inspires you, or go see a show that totally gives you that feeling of tingles, that changes your physiology. That will immediately change how you feel. And this is how another way that you can, if I had a visual, it'd be better, but how you can change your limiting beliefs is you change your language, because your language starts to dictate what it is that you say and what it is that you think, right? So your language is what you're saying, what you're thinking, how you're thinking repetitively over time it really dictates how you feel in any given moment. If you wake up and say, oh, I'm so stupid, this is so stupid, blah, 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 are you going to the gym? Probably not. I'm so lazy. I'm so fat. You're probably not going to the gym that day. So your language dictates your thoughts. Your thoughts dictate your feelings. Your feelings dictate your actions. How you feel in any given moment dictates how you act, right? And how you act produces your results. And your results reinforce your beliefs. Whether they're limiting or empowering, it's like this vicious cycle. If it's disempowering beliefs or limiting beliefs, it continues to perpetuate. But when you start to up-level your beliefs, you start to, instead of spiraling down, you start to spiral up. Empowering beliefs, empowering language, empowering thoughts that you consistently say gives you empowering feelings. How you feel in any given moment dictates your actions. And then the actions dictate your results. Now you have positive results. Now you have more empowering beliefs. Do you see how this works, folks? It's not rocket science. So if we want to shift our limiting beliefs, we can listen to our language. These are three other steps. Listen to your language. You can just hack the whole system and have willpower and say, I'm going for a run right now. Boom, I don't care. I know I feel like shit, but I'm going for a run anyways. Hack the system and boom, you're going to automatically feel different. And you're going to take new actions when you come back from that run. You're probably going to read a cool blog or do something productive or do something nice for your family member or eat something healthy, or you're going to make a new choice. You're going to have a new result and you're more empowered. Or the third way, which I believe is a total power tool, is, like I said, hack your feelings by listening to powerful music and watching powerful videos. So folks, we're giving a master class here in psychology and the human condition and how to really rewire your brain and really start to really live your dream life now. And I know, again, some of you might be not feeling like that's not accessible yet. You might be in depression mode or something bad might have happened. You don't have to go to live your dream life now. Just go to one level higher. And then the next day, go to one level higher, one level higher. And eventually you'll get to that place of really being able to accept and absorb the idea that you can live your dream life now, because it is possible, just like your mom said so.
I love it. Oh, listen, you've given so much here, and there's so much content. It's unbelievable. To summarize, I suppose, I mean, I mean, you talked about a parting thought. What would you want to leave as a parting thought for people?
So definitely, I want to part with everybody saying, think big, say yes, and take action, right? Think big. Anything is possible. Everything is possible. Say yes. This leads into my improv background, improv comedy. There's a whole lesson on just saying yes. The magic, in fact, I do a whole workshop on the magic of saying yes. When you say yes, it immediately tells the world, the universe, everything, the particles out there that are moving around, all those billions of bits of information. Wow, we've talked about so much today. I keep remembering things that we've already talked about. It tells all those bits of information. It tells your subconscious mind, when you say yes, what to look for, so that when it shows up in one of those bits, your brain actually says, oh, I want to see that, instead of turning it away. So say yes. And man, say yes, especially when you're scared. I don't mean when there's fear, when there's danger, but definitely when there's fear, yes. If there's danger, don't say yes. But if there is, unless you really, really have to like save somebody's life or your own or something like that. But when there's fear, know that that's part of the process, right? You got to fail fast and fail often. I used to say that to my sales team all the time. Be okay with failure. Because when you fail fast, you take massive action and you have little mini failures. They're small failures, but you're learning so much more because your feedback loop is so fast. Fail fast, take massive action, fail fast and fail often, right? So think big and say yes, be okay with potentially failing. Know that that's actually part of the process. And you actually learn more when you fail than you do when you succeed. And it's always perfect. You cannot fail. It's always perfect. It's always perfect. And you just got to take action. You have to be in action, right? So beyond that, I would say, I don't know if you're going to ask me if people want to stay in touch with me. I'd be happy to share some resources and stay in touch. But
Yes, please.
other than that, I just want people to know that no matter where you're at, whether you're crushing it right now and loving life and making millions of dollars, or whatever your number is, hundreds of thousands or thousands, or whether you're just crushing it because you're happy and has nothing to do with success in business, then awesome. That's great. Good for you. And just know that there's a whole nother level. There's a whole nother level. There's a purpose for you. And I believe it is to find your gift, find ways to be in service to other people inside of that gift. It's not going to just happen though. It's not just going to happen sitting around thinking positive thoughts. You've got to surround yourself with amazing people. You've got to fill your head and your heart and your soul with positive, empowering things that are aligned with that which you want. And you just got to believe that it's possible and take action. So again, think big, say yes, and take action is really actually what I want to leave people with, because it's that impactful, I believe. And hopefully today has been super impactful for all of your listeners as well and viewers.
I can only thank you so much for sharing all that, for being so open, for being so honest, for being so insightful, and I think that's there. How can people hunt you down, track you, stalk you?
You can definitely, if you're trying to friend me on social media, LinkedIn is the best place. Unless you're like a speaker, I don't friend everybody on Facebook, but a lot of people I do. You can friend me there if you want, but really it's my website, clintonyoung.com, CLINTONYOUNG. And I'm sure Pete will put a link in the notes for that. But ultimately what I want to leave people with is, again, anything's possible and you can do it, right? And you totally got this. You totally got this. And for any of my aspiring speakers out there or entrepreneurs with a burning desire to share a message, like a burning desire in your stomach to share a message with the world, you were born to deliver a message. You've got to become what I call world class. You have to, right? You have to. And I want to, if you liked anything that I shared today, or how I've shared some stories today, or some of the content I've shared today, I want to give all my aspiring speakers out there, which I'm sure you have some people watching or listening, or any entrepreneurs with a burning desire to share that message with the world. I want to give them my top 7, and I actually have a bonus 8th, top principles for becoming a world-class speaker. And again, that means being an effective speaker where you're impacting 99% of the room, right? And some of these, just to give you an idea, I'm going to give these, by the way, for free. One of these, I invested over $5,000 to one of my coaches. He's a National Speaker Association Hall of Fame speaker in the United States. Hall of Fame speaker. He speaks all around the world, like 30,000 a speech. I paid him $5,000 for this one tip. And that one tip has allowed me to generate tens of thousands of dollars on the back of that. But more importantly, it's allowed me to become a world-class communicator and speaker from stage, from video, et cetera, et cetera. And it's allowed me to teach other people the same thing. And I'm going to give you not only that one, but 7 other ones for free. Okay. I already shared my speaker posse. If you're a speaker, definitely join the speakerposse.com. That's a free group. And then I'm going to give you my top 7 and the bonus 8th world-class speaker principles that I've learned over my thousands of hours on stage, and that I've learned from some of the top coaches and speakers on the planet. And you can go to worldclassspeakertips.com, worldclassspeakertips.com, and that, put your email in your name, and my team is immediately going to send that out to you. You're going to have all 7 plus the bonus 8th. Now, for anyone that's crazy hungry, Pete, that's like, I want to learn this like at a deeper level, reach out to me. I do coaching. Reach out to me, and I do group coaching as well. So let me know. It's obviously an investment there. And then also, after you sign up for or get access to the speaker principles at worldclassspeakertips.com, those are free. You'll have the opportunity. I'm actually doing a redonkulously inexpensive special right now for $49 to actually get a full course on all of those world-class principles. and I give my full 90-minute keynote speech as well as a case study. It's normally $500. So I'm not trying to pitch that at all on here. I just want you to be aware that after you opt in to get the free speaker tips, worldclassspeakertips.com, it's going to lead you to my course page. And if you choose to enroll in that, welcome to the team. Again, it's right now. I did a Labor Day special, and I just haven't changed it back. It's normally $497. It's $49, and I'll leave that out there for a little bit because I know this probably won't go live for some time. For your viewers, be happy to have you in the speaker posse as well. And just go to worldclassspeakertips.com and get those tips, and stay connected with me on my website, clintonyoung.com. But Pete, I want to say thank you to you as well for your big heart, for being an amazing podcast host, and for asking me all the right questions to allow me to share and contribute at the highest level for your team. It's been an honor and a privilege. I've heard great things about you, and I look forward to meeting you in person when I speak over in Ireland again.
Absolutely, Clinton. Again, I can't thank you enough. So thank you. And yeah, we look forward to amazing things in the future. So thank you again.